All right, we're live and ready to roll. Decided I'd go on and do yet another impromptu stream. This time around, we're going to take a look back at the rather legendary Kent Hovind Aron discussion. This goes back to, it feels older than that. It only dates back to 2018, March 2nd of 2018 it happened. And the video quality looks like it was more of March of 2008, not gonna lie. But that's just how it goes. This was on the Non Sequitur show back during its, shall we say, heyday, um, with Steve McRae and Kyle Curtis. Fuck Kyle. He's a piece of shit. I'm cool with Steve. Put it that way. He has some controversial opinions at this stage. Ever since I left X, however, I haven't been able to keep up with what he's been saying, but he and I have talked, and I still intend to work with him on something somewhere down the line discussing my views on atheism, since he has a particular analytical way of contrasting it to agnosticism and other such constructs. But that's neither here nor there. We're here for the Aron Ra and Kent Hovind discussion. We're just going to let it play, do our usual reactions, and have some fun. And that's the key thing here, is we're going to have fun. I actually have the stream comments on subscribers only, so that we can have a little bit more of a tightly knit community experience here and not have the typical theists pop in and do their usual stuff. Before we get started, Brock wondering why is that one guy evil? Long story short, Kyle completely fucked over Steve, was basically stealing his money, and was all around a piece of shit person, even outside of the entire Non Sequitur show issue. Eventually, Steve was able to get back control of the channel and the intellectual property thereof, but it was a whole fucking mess. So yeah, Kyle Curtis is just an all-around piece of shit. He might as well hang out with Kent Hovind, honestly. But Kent wouldn't like him because, Kyle Curtis has an alternative lifestyle, and Kent thinks people, feeling how they do about other people is bad. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, I've got us queued up, ready to go. Let's do this. This is a 2-hour video. I don't think I can go for the entire video in this stream. I don't think I have the energy. We're going to push as far as we can. Of course, I always have to say, shekels tossed over help. Just saying.
We have got it finally after a week. And last night, with some confusion, we are happy to announce that we have Aron Ra and Kent Hovind both in person here tonight. This is going to be.
You notice that you can hear someone breathing in the background, this slight wheeze, and you have no idea who it's from. I mean, it can't be Kyle because he's talking at the moment. Could have been Steve. Could be Aron. Could be Kent. No one really knows. I just hear it in my headphones. I'm like, ah.
Be a historic night, I think. We're going to have a really good show. And I thank, first of all of you guys out there for joining us. We do episodes every Saturday at noon. You can visit www.nonseqshow.com, and that's NONSEQ show.com. You can also check out the guests that we have coming up, just to kind of give you an example of the shows that we have coming up in the coming weeks. We have Nate Dern from funnyordie.com, who is going to be coming on to talk about his new book, Not Quite a Genius. We are also starting a new segment with Pamela.
Sorry, I forgot there was a little bit of preamble here. We're going to double speed that until we get to the actual meat of the discussion. I tried to jump ahead of the intro and forgot all this was there. So let's blitz ahead.
Whistle, who is the membership director of American Atheists, and they get all kinds of hate mail and voicemails every week. So she's going to be coming on once a week to kind of go through those voicemails and emails, and it's really fun. I mean, it's going to be really funny. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host Steve McRae, who will introduce the two contenders that we have tonight, and we'll go from there. So enjoy the show, everyone.
All right, back to normal speed. Honestly, I love these speed change options in YouTube. That stuff has been great. I have friends who I'll play stuff at like 1.0 speed, and they'll be like, dude, put it on 1.5. I can handle it. I'm like, okay, bro. It's nice.
Well, I don't think either one of these gentlemen kind of need any kind of introductions by now. I think anybody knows who they are. However, for this discussion, I think that they both should spend at least a minute or two kind of introducing themselves, giving their position and why they're having this discussion, and then we'll kind of jump right into it and kind of have just a free-for-all organic conversation.
Oh no, Tubian. I am very familiar with pine trees and elephants. And of course, that one line Kent says, talking about his slides, and Aron's incredible, just perfect snark response to it. Now, I've seen this countless times. Just thought it was one of the many discussions to cover since I decided to do the Professor Dave one, which clearly got under 0645 2017 skin. And before we continue, yes, I know I said I'm done with this clown for a while. Excuse me, sorry. We aren't doing this because of it being 0645 2017. We're doing this as a chance to just appreciate the tactical nuke that is Aron Ra. So, Kent's irrelevant to this. We're just appreciating Aron.
Conversation between the both of them. Ken, I want you, if possible, can you start, give about 1 or 2 minutes, explain who you are, your position, and then we'll have Aron do the same.
Certainly, yes, sir. Thank you for having me here. I'm 65 years old. My name's Kent Hovind. I've been a Baptist, ordained Baptist preacher since 1974. I taught high school science and math in Christian schools for 15 years. I've been a full-time evangelist speaking on creation versus evolution for about 30 years now. I take the position that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate, and the evolution theory is the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the history of humanity. And those are the nice things we say about it.
You kind of have to love this. This is back before Kent became as absolutely just pure evil bitter like he is now. This is still a few years out from the prison stint, and at this point he started being more of a jerk. But this is before he just became the outright asshole we have today, so it's kind of fascinating watching the devolution of Kent Hovind. So this is a nice snapshot of how he was at this time.
Okay. Is that all you want to say?
Well, yeah, we're building a Christian park in a campground, actually, in Lenox, Alabama, straight north of Pensacola, Dinosaur Adventureland. It'll be a simple science experiments to teach biblical lessons, and you guys can come on down. We have a lot of fun. We have 10 lakes on the property. Someone gave us the property, and we're having all kinds of things. We hope to be open April 21st. My website is drdino.com, and the phone number, 855-BIG-DINO. Extension 3 takes right straight to my cell phone. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Aron, why don't you go ahead and take a minute or two, kind of tell people who you are and your positions on all this.
My name is Aron Ra. I had it legally changed for my state Senate position, and because it's the name that I wanted to appear when I both ran for office, and of course also on my book. It's on all my publications for the last.
Well, let's note that he stresses here that he had it legally changed. In the later back and forth they would have, and continuing whenever Kent would decide he wants to whack Aron, because he loves whacking Aron. Kent loves whacking people. He'll constantly refer to his original last name and call him Larry for some strange reason. So, it's been addressed right here that no, Aron legally had his name changed, and regardless of that, if that's the name he wishes to go by, that is the name he's going to go by.
10 years. And, it's now on my driver's license, my credit cards, Wikipedia, all of that. So I am the Southwest Regional Director of American Atheists, and I'm the director of the Phylogenetic Explorer Project. And we do, my wife and I, we do educational videos, and I have a channel of 160,000 some odd subscribers where we counter creationism.
Okay.
And of course, my book available on Amazon is The Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism, and is very highly rated. And Mr. Hovind is mentioned in it numerous times.
Well, yay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Awesome. So,
notice right there, Mr. Hovind. Also notice that if you can make out the boxes for Kent and Aron, that it just says Kent Hovind and not Dr. Kent Hovind. Because Non-Sex Show isn't biased to Kent, unlike a certain other platform that Kent does pretty much exclusively on now.
So what we kind of figured was because it's not going to be a structured debate and there's so much that I think you gentlemen have to discuss, I'm just going to kind of throw it over to you guys. And Kyle and I kind of going to step back, let you guys have this a very free-flowing, organic conversation. Aron, why don't you kind of start us off?
I just gotta say, Oceanus right here, throw in the heat. Damn, that would explain a lot.
Or I think that Kyle had mentioned before that maybe there's something that Kent wanted to mention, or did you kind of bypass
Yeah,
on that, Kent?
Kent wants to go on about something first.
Okay, that's fine. If Kent, you want to go start on that, and I know you said it may take a while, but if Aron is kind of cool with it, then you want to lead in with that, and we can go from there.
No, Aron had
May take a while. This is Kent we're talking about. Everything takes a while.
done a YouTube, 4 or 5 days ago, and I already did a quick YouTube for our listeners, but technical problems. It's not posted yet. It's coming though, so I don't need to do that. Let Aron go first. I'd like to hear his position.
All right. Well, my position is that obviously counter yours completely. I mean, I would say that the reason that the Bible is absolutely wrong about absolutely everything is because it was obviously written by ignorant, bigoted, primitive, superstitious savages who.
Yeah, I do mean standing for truth, Brock, and yeah, they're super biased. Donnie is a young Earth creationist, and they have teamed up in discussions and such. It's total, absolute biased moderation, 100%. That being said, Donnie can do good moderation, but he still comes from an explicit standpoint of, while trying not to, defending Kent. I don't totally trust the guy, but he has earned more of my respect recently. Like his most recent moderation between AJ and Kent was pretty good. So, I'll give credit where it's due.
Clearly had no idea what they were talking about. And that's why there's nothing that can be verified accurate, but a whole lot that is laughably stupid about what the Bible describes about the world. In fact, the way everything the Bible says about the earth in relation to the rest of the cosmos, any indication about genetics or history, anything, is embarrassingly dumb. Yeah, and there is, of course, no truth to any of your claims about evolution being a religion, for example. This is just an attempt at projection where you're trying to cast your own faults onto those who will not share them, and it's an attempt at the fallacy.
Being pretty honest, Brock, trying to reach any of these major names, like actually get through to them, is pointless. The best you can do is put up the best presentation you can for reality, for people in the audience to potentially see the flaws in the creationist argument, see the dishonesty, and then maybe reevaluate things. That's the most I could hope for, is that at least people get out of this level of outright reality denial.
Of false equivalence, which is what I think you meant to talk about, I'm sure, because that deals with most of your arguments, that and equivocation.
Kent?
Well, okay. Well, before we get into a discussion too far on the topic of evolution, we need to define what we're talking about. And for many years, I think you've obviously seen many times my division of that word into 6 different categories.
Yes, those are inaccurate, so we're gonna go with the correct definition. I know that
coming out with fire. Sorry, I'm enjoying a peppermint.
you've actually bragged many times that people have corrected your misdescription of that, and it's appropriate that they correct you on this. I don't know why you don't correct yourself when you keep repeating an error. So when we talk about evolution, unless otherwise specified, because there is a colloquial meaning that doesn't apply to biological evolution or the science of evolution or certainly the theory of evolution, which pertains only to the aspect or theory of biodiversity, which can be summarily defined as a genetic variance in reproductive populations over time, or a change in allele frequencies in reproductive populations over time.
Okay,
now,
so
I can give a longer definition, but still it's going to be within the confines of biology.
Okay, so you're saying the word evolution only encompasses the living things that have already come alive somehow. So you're leaving out any kind of organic evolution, or what I would call.
There's no such thing as organic evolution. If we're talking about abiogenesis, that's a overlapping series of different processes. None of them are the evolutionary process, which is descent with inherent genetic modification.
Okay, so is this descent with genetic modification?
And see, this is what's great about the way Aron does things. And this is what I feel everyone should do when having an active discussion with Kent. Granted, it's hard to do with people defending him like they do, like Donnie will, is cut him off and do not grant him anything. Don't allow his 6 stages bullshit. Don't allow any of it, and fight on that. Because if you deny Kent the ability to work his script, granted, he's just going to claim you tried to steamroll him. Y'all kept on talking. You tried to monopolize the time. But if you don't allow Kent to ever actually run his script, he has nothing.
Modification limited in any way, or do you think elephants and pine trees are related?
Well, definitely, I think that elephants and pine trees.
Well, Phantom, glad you got the important stuff done first. Welcome to the party. Apologize that it is more Kent, but as I said in the opening, which you would have missed, we are here to appreciate Aron Ra's performance here more than anything else. The fact that it happens to be discussing, this with Kent is just by virtue of it's what I decided to pick. Kent often monopolizes time himself with his rambling. Yeah, that's his entire MO. Absolutely. Just bog every single cent you can, every single penny you can, and every single second he can, and then some. And he even does it here when they try to be like, hey, hurry up, get on somewhere. Aron makes up for Kent. Very good. Very good. I'm thinking about doing the one where Aron and I forget who else went against those other 2 guys, one of them being that Cliff guy. That'd be a pretty good one to look at. And of course, the Hannah and Jake versus Kent. I plan on looking at all of them over time. Just depends on how I'm feeling.
Trees are related, and that is a demonstrable fact, yes.
And how would you demonstrate the fact that elephants and pine trees are related?
One of the primary way is phylogeny, which is kind of what I'm all about. It's my hobby that has become, thankfully, my job. Directing the Phylogeny Explorer project, which is an attempt to depict the entire phylogenetic tree of life as a navigable online encyclopedia of the entire cladistic system.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm snacking here. Yep, Phantom, that's the one.
So just for the audience's sake, you are what I would say skipping the first 5 definitions of what I call evolution, the cosmic.
What only you and people
no.
who do not know science call evolution.
Okay, I think every textbook from every public school teaches all these as part of the general overarching principle.
Except that no textbook anywhere ever described what you describe as evolution. Unless you want to get into A. Becker or some of the other Christian deliberate misrepresentations to try to deceive students. But if you're talking about actual scientific documents, nobody agrees with the way you misrepresent this. So we're going to keep evolution as descent with inherent genetic modification.
So descent with inherent genetic modification. So they already have the ability to reproduce. They already are alive. They're already able to move, replicate, and ingest, digest food. You've already bypassed the major hurdles that are going to be a great obstacle to your religion.
That stuff's completely irrelevant, though, Kent, as we always have to bring up in this. You don't need to know every single step of every single thing's origin to understand a given aspect of it. Sometimes that may be necessary going back a stage or 2. But not entirely. You don't need to know where, you always love bringing up cars, you don't need to know where the iron that made up the frame of your car was mined from. You don't need to know that. It doesn't matter. And it's the same thing here. In the grand scheme, when talking about evolution as it actually is scientifically defined, the entire thing begins with how life behaves, how changes in allele frequencies happen. You don't need to know the earlier parts. Those parts are cool. Those parts may be fascinating, and sure, love to know the details. But for the principle, it doesn't matter. You can't understand that. Because being able to divorce one concept from another means that you would be able to divorce, or would have to divorce, aspects of your religion from the rest of reality. And you can't do that. Because you have such a myopic view. Stream over, I'm tired. Nah, we're continuing, but not in the mood for this guy. Aron makes up for it.
I don't have a religion, but
you certainly do.
We absolutely certainly do not. And we're about to prove that. Kent,
Okay.
I want to hear your infantile definition of what a religion is. And let's
I
see how
think
you've explored that.
you can look it up in any dictionary. Look it up in Wikipedia.
Now notice here he's getting that condescending tone going on, and of course he called it Wikidpedia. Probably because his Wikipedia entry happens to mention his prison stint, and the profile photo on, or profile photo, the photograph for it happens to be one of his prison photos from his arrest. Oh, ain't that some good shit?
I have
religion-
actually looked it up
okay.
in a lot of different dictionaries. When I took a
Sure.
course on comparative or the history of comparative world religions, our professor there challenged us, saying that religion was something that he thought was impossible to define. I didn't think it was impossible to define because I do classification and I understand the rules for how to classify things. And as a matter of fact, I made this a little easier. I posted a collection of definitions that are relevant to this subject some years ago, back in 2012. I put something called Offerings to the Atheist Dictionary, because these are words that are comically, or actually comically is correct, that are comically misrepresented whenever you're arguing with creationists. The definition of religion that I came up with by examining all the different things that are universally accepted as religion by both their adherents and their critics are a doctrine of ritual traditions, ceremonies, mythology, and associated dogma of a faith-based belief system which posits a posthumous promise that some element of self, be it a soul or consciousness or memories, etc., may in some sense continue beyond the death of a physical being. Now, this applies to every religion that is universally accepted as a religion, and doesn't. And evolution, however, meets exactly none of these criteria. So, I want to hear what you define as a religion and how.
And that's incredible. Note the detailed, nuanced, intricate way he described the concept of religion as it's actually applied, versus the infantile, it's something you believe that Kent goes with. It's ridiculous. Anyone honestly looking at this stuff can see we're in two completely different leagues of intelligence here. Just straight up. And Kent is not the victor in that comparison.
We can distinguish things that are not religion from things that are.
Okay, I would like to ask Kyle or one of the moderators to kind of keep time here, because Aron keeps over-talking me and monopolizing the conversation. This is supposed to be a discussion. I would like equal time. Okay.
No, Kent, a discussion is a discussion. If this was a measured debate, that'd be a different story. And Steve and them call you out on it.
Fair enough.
Okay.
He's asked you a question. We're going to give you ample time to respond to his question with a direct answer for a direct question.
I have up on screen the definition from Random House Webster's College.
He has it on screen, guys. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can't see shit, Captain.
Dictionary, year 2000, page 1116. Religion, a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe. That is what fits your religion of evolutionism
Except that
to the
it
T.
doesn't.
Yeah, it seriously doesn't at all.
It does.
Hold
It's
on,
exactly
No,
it.
it doesn't, because evolution has nothing to do with the cause of the universe, nor certainly not the purpose of it.
But of course, Kent's 6 kinds of evolution is how he tries to make it into an all-encompassing thing. It's a very poorly woven tapestry of idiocy that he thinks sounds impressive enough to convince some people of its veracity. Maybe the idiots and the dullards who do things like leave stupid ass comments on my channel, which I'm going to do a dedicated video on one I got earlier. Some of y'all already know what I'm talking about, but others, you'll get to see the kinds of Christian love promoted here from random ass people. There's a rabbit hole to go down, but let's keep going.
Does it have to do with the nature of the universe, how things work?
How things work, yes.
Okay, well then you
But
have a
not
religion.
with the universe.
Okay, you believe that dogs, you believe that whales, I think it was elephants and pine trees are related. No one's ever seen
eukaryotes, are they not?
No one's ever seen an elephant produce anything but an elephant.
They are both eukaryotes, are they not?
It doesn't matter. They're both living.
Why does it not matter?
They're both above ground. They both
Yes, and
ingest
but they're both eukaryotes, correct?
It doesn't matter. You're missing
It
the point.
certainly does matter. But
Okay.
the question is not whether it matters. The question is whether or not they are eukaryotes.
You're missing the point completely.
No. You are missing the point. Are they both eukaryotes, yes or no?
As far as I know, they are. That doesn't.
Yeah.
So does
Have
that
you ever
prove
seen
they're
a
related?
eukaryote give birth to a non-eukaryote?
Does that prove they're related?
within the
I swear, in that moment right there, Aron had to think for a minute. Because I think that was his, I'm about to punch this motherfucker in the face tell. He leans back and it's like, you're going to fuck you up. And he can't. Because it's through the internet. So he has to mentally formulate what he's going to do. And I don't mean Aron would actually do that to somebody, but that kind of feeling where you just get that frustrated and so lashing out is what comes to mind from our primitive brain. That chain of processes get triggered. So hilarious to me.
the phylogeny, yes, it does.
Okay, now, since you keep talking about phylogeny and said this is your area of expertise, I would like to just ask you.
That he has, Urs, that he has.
You were on a show called The Non Sequitur, which I think is classic. A non sequitur is a conclusion or statement that does not logically follow from the previous argument or statement.
Okay.
I think we can give examples of elephants producing elephants and pine trees producing pine trees. It does not logically follow that they are related.
Why would that not logically follow? I need to explain something to you that you've been repeating incorrectly for years. I've been listening to you get this wrong for 20 years, and I'm delighted that maybe I'm the first person out of all the people you talk to. It can't be that I'm the first person to address this, but I keep hearing you repeat this error. So let me address that now.
It is not an error. It is
the
not
law
an
of
error.
monophyly.
You are in error. You are in error, and I'm here to.
No, you're in error. Hovind.
You have no idea what I'm even going to say, and when I'm done saying it, you still won't have any idea what I said.
You have no idea, Aron. You have no idea what you're saying. I will help you here. Religion is a belief, and you have.
Don't pretend.
You have
I know that
belief.
you made a life out of pretending, but that's not what we're going to do. I'm addressing your error. Just be very clear.
Hold it.
All right,
you are the one pretending.
You can tell from Ken's voice the frustration is growing. We are literally already watching Kent realize he's bitten off infinitely more than he can chew. This may be the beginning of the point where the permanent damage to Kent's psyche starts. And so the next hour and 45 minutes of this is just cutting deeper and deeper into the Jupiter-sized ego that 0645-2017 has. Glorious is the only word I can use to describe this.
You are pretending that a pine tree and an elephant are related. Come on, that's a pretend.
Okay. I don't need to pretend that. I'm trying to demonstrate something to you. I'm trying to explain something to you, and you're trying to talk over me to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Well, go back and listen to the tape. Who's talking over who here?
Okay, let's
talking over me. I'm trying to explain.
Go back and listen to the tape because this is being recorded on, one of those 90-minute cassettes that if you rewind it too quickly, it breaks. Cheap ass tape from the dollar store. Hovind.
Let's kind of keep this. Let's keep this to where everybody can follow. Okay.
Okay.
Kent, I'm gonna let you go and explain your thought process as to why Aron is in error with that statement. So Aron, please let him.
Real quick.
Let him finish and then go from there.
Let's make sure we get the names right. It's Aron. Aron is actually his name, not Aaron, not Eric, not whatever. It's Aron.
Okay, let's keep it on track so everybody that's listening can kind of follow, because you can't understand what either of you are saying when you're jumping over each other. So just let Kent finish out his thought, Aron, and then we'll shoot it over to you and you can counter. Okay.
A week ago, I asked you to ask Aron what is the best evidence for evolution. He responded by saying it is systematic phylogenetics, and he said in his little 3-minute YouTube clip, the only way Hovind can counter that is to meet the phylogeny challenge, which no creationist will ever even attempt to do. Okay, first place, I'll help correct you a little bit here, Aron. It is phylogenetic systematics, not systematic phylogenetics, but that's okay. According to evolution.berkeley.edu, all life on Earth is united by evolutionary history. We are all evolutionary cousins, twigs on the...
Oh, I just wanted to bring up Brock. I already saw this a little late. We can't go back. All we can do is go forward. leaving Kent in the dust.
Tree of life. Phylogenetic systematics is the formal name for the field within biology that reconstructs evolutionary history and studies the patterns of relationships among organisms. Unfortunately, history is not something we can see. That is correct. Phylogenetic, from the dictionary, just Googled it on Google here, relating to the evolutionary development and diversification of a species or group of organisms, or of a particular feature of an organism, for instance, the teeth or the bone structure, etc. And I'm holding in front of me, I'll show it from Encyclopedia Britannica 2005, a phylogenetic tree based on the nucleotide differences in the gene for cytochrome C. And they have all these creatures with lines drawn between them, showing that a human, a monkey, a dog, a horse, a pig, etc., and a moth and a screwworm and a tuna are all related to a common ancestor. They draw these lines on the paper, and that becomes their science. Now, I'm curious, why did they choose to use the phylogenetic tree based on cytochrome C? Why did you make a tree based on the number of chromosomes, or based on the adult body weight, or based on life expectancy, or based on life or gestation period, or based on average number of offspring, or based on the number of teeth?
They have to focus on derived synapomorphy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic thing where Kent's like, what about this? What about that? What about this? And if he gets an answer, he just ignores it, as we're about to see here. He just, whatever. You know, it's always funny, the creationist bullshit of ask a question, get an answer from actual fucking scientists, and then just act like it was a non-answer. I think the people doing the fucking science, coming up with all the concepts, are the ones who know what the fuck the science is and what all the concepts are, you dumb fraud piece of shit. But what do I know? I'm just some guy on the internet.
All of these things are features, and if you do a phylogenetic tree on any of these things, you get a wildly different tree. For example, penicillin has 2 chromosomes. Houseflies and tomatoes both have 12. If you did a phylogenetic tree, you would say houseflies and tomatoes are identical twins. Possum, redwood tree, and kidney beans all have 22 chromosomes. They are not identical triplets. Humans have 46 chromosomes, and chimpanzees and tobacco both have 48. So if you did a phylogenetic tree based on anything other than what you want to believe, that there's somehow a relationship, you would get wildly different answers.
And of course, we have Kent not understanding a goddamn thing. Not understanding the reasons, even though Aron explained it. And you can see Aron's fatigue already. If he's just like, this is a fucking joke. I mean, this was bad back in 2018, and watching it now, it's even worse. It's hilariously bad.
So I think the evidence shows very clearly that you're choosing and selecting a particular phylogenetic tree that anybody can make up. You can arrange things in any kind of order you want and draw lines between them, but all the phylogenetic trees are nothing but lines on paper that somebody decided to make a relationship like you think.
Kent, all your Bible is lines on paper that someone decided to believe one day. You fucking idiot.
A pine tree and an elephant are related. That's a line on a piece of paper, Aron. That's not science. Science is something we observe, we study, we test, we demonstrate. Everybody that's ever done it will tell you elephants make baby elephants, no exceptions. Now, if you choose to believe, and I emphasize the word believe because it is a religious belief that you have, that elephants and pine trees are related, that's fine. I don't care what you believe. But I resent paying for that to be taught to all the kids in the schools.
And of course, it's a religion, and I don't like it being paid for at taxpayer expense, as if that has anything to do with the actual validity of the concepts, which are still proven valid, unlike what Kent says. But it's just, that's always the go-to. That's always like that little end thing. And it's like, you're not making the point you think you are, Kent.
System. That is not science. That's a religion in every sense of the word. Go ahead.
In no sense of the word is that a religion, because it is not faith-based, it's evidence-based. And it has nothing to do with any purpose for anything, much less anything to do with the beginning of the universe or what came prior to it, nor does it require a belief. I would suggest that we both start from not believing anything and just review the possibilities. And one of the things we have to look at is the law of monophyly, which is an evolutionary law. This is the one that Ernst Mayr described as Darwin's second law of common ancestry. And this is where he says that multiplication of species is Darwin's third law. And this is the one that I refer to as biodiversity. In either case, it means that one species may diversify into 2, into 4, and 8, and etc. But that in every daughter lineage, evolution is just a matter of superficial changes being compiled against successive tiers of fundamental similarities. And it is those tiers of fundamental similarities which can be interpreted as derived synapomorphies, which is what they're basing the phylogeny on. I have heard creationists argue that a watermelon is 98% water and a cloud is 100% water, and so a watermelon only missed being a cloud by 2%. Or that we could classify an octopus as being an ink pen since it spits ink, and we can classify it as a spider because it has 8 legs. And these are all deliberate attempts to avoid the fact.
Again,
Oh, God. Aron just laying it down. So good. So good. I hate that we don't have more of this.
Avoid the fact of what? That an octopus is related to an ink pen? What?
Do you understand the law of monophyly? But as I just described, it means that you can't outgrow your ancestry. That means at no point in evolutionary history did one kind, which doesn't exist, ever become another kind, which doesn't exist either.
You just told me that elephants and pine trees are related. You do
Right, and they're
believe
still
the different
eukaryotes,
kinds.
aren't they?
So that's
So
all
they're
it
still
takes.
eukaryotes, aren't they?
So that proves they're related.
Are they still eukaryotes or no?
Yes. Does that prove
Okay,
they're
good.
related?
And they never became a different kind, ever, did
So
they?
your definition of kind would include a pine tree and an elephant as the same kind of creature.
Are they both eukaryotes or no?
Are you drunk?
Are they both eukaryotes?
Yes.
Oh, there it is. Are they both eukaryotes? Are you drunk? Fuck you, Kent. What the fuck would it matter? But no, Aron's not drunk. Aron, I called him Arwen. Aron would have to drink your county dry to become inebriated, given the man's stature and general fortitude. Not that it matters at all to what he's saying or what he's asking. Fucking hilarious.
Okay,
This
then
is
they are both
insane.
the same kind in that respect, right?
That's nobody's definition of kind. Ask
Are
a
you sure?
5-year-old.
What
Ask a
happens when we look
5-year-old.
at the Bible, for example, what the Bible says about kinds?
The
How many
Bible says they
different...
were.
Yeah, the Bible mentions the beast kind.
10
I'm curious
times.
about that.
Okay, no, wait a minute.
This is true. Kent loves to bring up ad hom whenever anyone brings up his degrees or what have you, yet asking if Aron is drunk was specifically an ad hom, because the implication becomes you're drunk, ergo nothing you say has any value in this. Just straight out.
10 times in
We're
Genesis.
talking about the beast kind. Can you
Well, let me-
identify what is and isn't in the beast kind?
Well, let me say what you asked. What the Bible says. The Bible, in the very first chapter, Genesis chapter 1, 10 times says they will bring forth after their kind. So the kind has to do with bringing forth, and I can help you here. I taught biology. Elephants and pine trees cannot bring forth.
Because
Whether
of
they're
the
eukaryote-
evolutionary law of monophyly, we have
No,
one cannot become a different kind. You can speciate. You can get to a point where you have speciation, where they no longer can interbreed with the parent stock or maybe with their sister species, but they didn't become a different kind. They are still the parent category that they belonged to, and this applies to everything in the human phylogeny. We still belong to every one of our ancestral clades.
Ken, explain to everybody what you mean by kind, so that we're all on the same page. Aron just explained what he meant, so you kind of go through what.
Dang it.
And Ken, can you explain in
Always with the tech issues on this end. And here we have the classic inability of Kent to actually define kind, like explicitly. Never can do that. Always has to define by example. But then can barely do that. Let's see where he goes from here. Not like we don't all know.
kinds in reference to what Aron's saying in regards to monophyletic clade? When he's talking about Meyer's law of monophyly, can you kind of join them together to explain your version of a kind in relationship to something in a monophyletic clade?
Well, let's take this one question at a time. The Bible 10 times in Genesis chapter 1 mentions the word kind, and 10 more times in the flood story, Genesis 6 and 7. So 20 times in the first 7 chapters, it talks about Noah bringing the animals in the 6 and 7, chapter 6 and 7, bringing the animals onto the ark after their kind. So it has to do with bringing forth and for them to get 2 of each kind on board the ark. I can assure you a pine tree and an elephant are not the same kind of animal in the biblical way of thinking, or in anybody
Are
else.
either one of them in the beast kind?
A pine tree is not in the beast kind, no.
But
So
an elephant is?
An elephant is a beast. It's a beast of the earth.
Okay,
Yes,
how
it's an
many
animal.
different types of beasts are within the elephant or within the beast kind?
Well,
and
I
how
think there
can
are-
we distinguish them?
Everyone give a shout out to Brock for going for the gut punches. Damn, bro, that's savage. Well played.
Well, the current estimate is there are 7,000 or 8,000 kinds of animals on land.
How many of
breathe-
them are
who breathe
beasts?
air. That would be
How many
7,000.
of them belong to the beast kind?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Okay, so we
But
have
the-
kinds within kinds. There
Well,
are
we
different
have-
kinds of beasts. There's not just the beast kind. There's also kinds of beasts within the beast kind.
You know what I think of when you get into the nitty gritty of the biblical kind construct? All I can think of is turtles all the way down. There's kinds of kinds of kinds of kinds of kinds. And you just wind up with an equivalent to species, but a shittier one. I don't know why. That's just what this part of the conversation makes me think of.
Well, that's a great question. But see, I'm not asking for my theory to be taught at taxpayer expense. You are. So the
Well,
burden of
yeah,
proof's
and the
on
one
you.
I have is actually
Hold on one sec-
it's
hold on.
actually justified, and yours is not. You're arguing for kinds, which means did you catch when I said that the only way to address this would be to address the Phylogenetic challenge? Did you follow that?
Yeah, Tyler, it's amazing. Aron just straight up, nope, not having it. If I ever was to have any kind of proper debate with Kent Hovind, which, again, he would need to reach out to me because he's the one who wants debates. I don't care one way or the other. I wouldn't put up with his bullshit at all.
Do you even know what the Phylogenetic challenge is?
I do, but let's just take.
Okay, what is the Phylogeny challenge?
Arn, hold on
No,
1 second. Arn.
you're-
Let him finish.
you're-
Let him finish out an answer. Go ahead, Kent. We're gonna.
I'm Ken Hovind here at Dinosaur Adventureland playing the Magic the Gathering against Aron Ra, and I've got 2 mountains and a plains out. I'm going to tap all 3 of them and summon Mystical Jesus. Yes. And then I realize this game is satanic and I burn the cards, but I don't burn the Jesus card because I think that's a sin. I don't know. That's where I was going with this.
We're gonna give you the time to finish out your answer,
That's where my mind went. Stupid jokes and all.
and
Well,
Arn,
yeah.
let him.
Yeah,
Let him
you're
get it
bringing up 5 or 6 topics. Okay, I will stand by the Bible, which says very clearly the animals bring forth after their kind. Therefore, the ability to bring forth seems to be directly related into deciding what exactly is a kind. I think I demonstrate. I'm going to show up some pictures here we're going to video this for people. There are 200 recognized species.
I can produce a ghost, but I need a VCR, and I need to go to my storage unit to grab a tape I recorded back in the 90s on Cartoon Network. Put it in, press play. Space Ghost, my man. I can produce that ghost. And that's it.
Species of squirrels in the world. They are the same kind of animal called a squirrel. That's from
Is there
National
anything
Geographic.
other than squirrels that are in that kind?
In the squirrel kind, I don't know.
Damn. Austin did a straight interrupt. Fucking tax audited. Kent's ass is in jail again. Game over.
Is there a squirrel? Okay, so there's a squirrel kind. So God created a primordial group of a pair, I guess, of squirrels.
I don't, that could
then-
see.
And then
If
he
he-
created is there a chipmunk kind as well?
Now, whether the chipmunk and squirrel are related would be a good study for biology. But I
Yeah,
think
it would. It
anybody-
would define what a kind is.
Sure.
So did God
Now that would be a good study for biology. Fucking prick.
create 2 rodents that wait?
Could it just stop doing that? Just please, YouTube, stop with the random, thinking I'm clicking on the minimize, maximize, because I'm not. Maybe I'll just use space going forward.
There's a rodent kind. So now we have squirrels, we have chipmunks, and we have do we have rabbits in that? Are we going to put Lagomorphs into that same kind as well?
And you're talking over me again. I don't interrupt you. Now listen, there are 200 recognized species, and I'll use the word species, of squirrels. I think they're probably all interfertile. There are 350 breeds of horses. You get into different names here, what they mean. What does a breed?
Super chat 4.99 from Deconstructing Laura. Kent keeps complaining about one topic at a time, but Aron has asked him one question that he refuses to answer. Exactly. I mean, this is a quintessential demonstration of the sliminess of Kent Hovind. The double standards, the inability to actually answer direct questions, all of it. The only thing we don't have beyond, like the "Are you drunk" line is his rampant just assholishness, which is only developed in more recent years.
Name, what is a species, what is a family, a genus, a kind. The biblical definition of kind was given, or the word kind was used way before Carolus Linnaeus was ever thought of. So Carolus Linnaeus came up with our current classification system. There are the horses, for instance, the horse, the zebra can interbreed. The ass, the Shetland pony, you can get a zebra, a shebra, a zebrass, a zedonk, a zeonki, a zorse. They probably are the same kind. I don't know exactly where the line is, but I think it's pretty obvious in most cases that.
Well, clearly not.
Well, for heaven's sake, Aron, you think a pine tree and an elephant are the same kind? What on earth is wrong
But
here?
you think there are kinds within kinds, and that we have the squirrel kind and we have the chipmunk kind, both.
Brings up Gish. I respond with the gallop. Okay, that was terrible. I'm tired. Leave me alone. Hovind.
Within the rodent kind. So it sounds like you're defining what clades are, which of course would all connect to each other, because trees and elephants are both eukaryotes, as we said. So at what point do we get to where God created a primordial pair who then diversified into all these other clades?
Well, that, like I said, would be a great field of study.
That's the phylogeny challenge.
Well,
so you have to show me, and I made a video about this for anybody that's curious. Please look up the phylogeny challenge. It is the death knell for all creationist arguments, because it can't be addressed.
So Aron, you're asking in the phylogeny challenge for the original type of pair that created all the other supposed kinds and subclassifications.
Yeah, if there was any truth to creationism whatsoever, or if the theory of evolution was fundamentally flawed in any way, then there would have to be a point where, as Kent does, he accepts a certain degree of phylogeny, but it has to trace back to an original set of created kinds. And it can't be, well, that would be an interesting question, since they're both rodents, and both rodents are eutherians, and all eutherians are mammals, and you can trace it all the way back to eukaryotes.
Would that have
so
to
where is the dividing line?
Too? For the phylogeny, with the phylogeny challenge, would it also have to show and demonstrate speciation rates to show this original mating pair to diversify to all these species that are out there relating to whatever the original kind that Ken is referring to?
Well, the speciation rate isn't really relevant unless you put a time constraint on it.
7,000 years.
Okay. Well, if he's going to imply his own time constraint, then he has this issue that he would have to address as well, because that's just going to further complicate his position.
I will gladly address that if you stop interrupting and bringing up 20 more topics. Okay.
It's the same topic. It's been the same topic.
Okay. The Bible.
I want to bring up to Tubian. Said, what do you want to bet Kent didn't know what monophyly is and had to Google it or have it fed to him? I am 100% certain before this discussion, Kent had no comprehension whatsoever of the law of monophyly. And that if he hadn't lost his channel, you could actually see the slow and steady progression of him learning what that is and coming up with his counter apologetics to it.
The Bible says they will bring forth after their kind. I will make the statement that probably Noah had two.
And yes, indeed, this is where Kent learned what a eukaryote is. Because Kent doesn't know shit.
Squirrels on the ark. They have diversified into 200 species of squirrels. Black ones, white ones, brown ones. That is not evident, and that could happen in 4,400 years. We have 339 breeds of dogs that have been developed in the last 300 years. Yes, it can happen very quickly. There are biological factors, like the Kaibab and the Abert squirrel, just by geographic isolation across the Grand Canyon, have developed and look pretty different. Whether they're still reproductively capable, I don't know. I had to put them together and find out. There are 800 breeds of cattle recognized worldwide, and they fall into two main types, according to Wikipedia, just a couple days ago, yesterday, okay? So 800 breeds of cattle, I think we would agree, are probably the same kind of animal. Noah might have had 10 cows on the ark, or 20, and we now have 800 breeds. I don't know what he had on the ark.
Kent, if all Noah had on the ark were 10 cows, You ain't getting any baby cattle. All you've got is a bovine lesbian orgy. There. Think about that one. He always says cows. He never says bovine. He'll never differentiate between, that and a steer or what have you. It's always cows. It's like he has the understanding of, basic biodiversity of a kindergartner. The cow says moo.
I'm not asking for mine to be taught at taxpayer expense. But if you think a cow and a pine tree are related, and an elephant and a bacteria, I think that's a stretch of anybody's imagination. I have some pictures here of, for instance, the different cats in the cat family. Here's a jag lion, the cross between a jaguar and a lion. So possibly the jaguar and a lion are the same biblical kind. There's a bobcat lynx cross. There are 30 recognized breeds of chickens in the world, and it says the jungle fowl is the original bird from which all varieties and strains of domesticated chickens are derived. Man has developed domesticated chickens. Some lay more eggs, some have more meat, some live longer, some produce more offspring. They can select for a certain characteristic that they want, but they're still a chicken. And a 5-year-old knows that. They could recognize right away the difference between a chicken and a pine tree.
A 5-year-old also realistically can learn the difference between a cow and the male counterpart and understand the concept of bovines if taught it properly, which apparently you were never taught that properly, Kent. Fun fact, I was a dumb little kid, overthinking stuff, but not totally getting things. And when I was about 5, some of y'all may relate to this, and I don't know why I thought this, aside from stereotypes of pet owners, but for a very short portion when I was like 4 or 5 years old, so a little dumbass, I thought that all dogs were boys and all cats were girls. For a while, I had a thought that they were the same species because of an understanding that cows were all female and that there was the steer. You had your chickens, you had your roosters, that kind of thing where they're deviated. For some reason, my little self thought that. Only had dogs growing up and they were always boys. Eventually, probably sometime before 6, I know, I put 2 and 2 together, but I distinctly remember a period where I thought that and then learned it wasn't the case. And I'm like, oh, okay. Again, I was a dumb little kid in a lot of ways, but I was thinking about stuff. So can you really fault me? I don't know. I feel like I want to go back in time and yell at myself, but that would just be mean. Still.
Why you can't, I don't know. But
What do
they
you mean
are
I
different.
can't? I just read you the law of monophyly, which shows that you can't, it is always going to be a chicken. It's never going to not be a chicken. All its descendants, no matter how much they change, they're going to still be chickens. Why? Because of the law of monophyly. And those chickens are still going to be neonath birds. They're still going to be birds. Not the bird kind, because the Bible doesn't describe what a kind is. Matter of fact, it says there's all sorts of birds, and it doesn't describe what a sort is either. But we have the idea that we have all kinds of birds. So we have kinds within kinds, which sounds like it's describing the same thing as clades, but the difference being, and this is the important thing that you keep missing, is that there has to be a point where they're not all related. So it says all kinds of birds, implying that there's different kinds of birds. So there were individual creations, yet they're all birds. So why are they not the bird kind?
Well,
so can you give me those? Give me a distinction between kinds.
You mentioned the law of monophyly. What is the ancestor between the pine tree and the elephant? What did that ancestor look like, and why didn't it always bring forth after its kind? Why did it diversify? It did. You mean an elephant and a pine tree are still the same kind?
That's right. They're still eukaryotes.
Okay. Well, I can help you recognize. If you get confused anytime, I can show you which is a tree and which is an elephant. I think probably.
I can do that too. I can do that too. See, you've described evolutionary principles for the last 5 minutes. I've no contest with that. I'm waiting for the creationist principles to come in.
I think I've told you several times. The Bible says if they can bring forth, they are the same kind.
Unless they've now speciated. Would you, and you accept that? I've seen in some of your other videos, you accept that speciation happens so they can no longer bring forth.
Speciation happens, but it's within very strict limits. There are 200
what are the limits?
There are 200 species of squirrels. Someday there may be 500 species of squirrels. That doesn't.
And what are the limits?
Squirrel. I think the limit is called squirrel. They're always going to be what's called a
because
squirrel.
of the law of monophyly. They're always going to be eukaryotes too. They're always going to be.
Yes, so Tangelo, let me just call up Aron since I have his number. And I know he's not doing anything on a Sunday morning. He's not a busy man. And just get him to come into my podunk live stream to verify that he's too scared to debate you. Come on, man.
Be mammals. They're always going to be eutherians. So none of those things are going to change.
So are
you still belong to every clade your evolutionary ancestors did. There was no point where you stopped being what they were. You can't grow out of your ancestry.
So I am still a pine tree.
Did I say or imply in any way that you were descended from a pine tree?
You said I'm still a eukaryote.
No, Tangelo, I'm not in the mood for an open mic discussion. I've been wanting to fire up another one, but not in the mood, certainly not right now. But one day.
So are the pine trees.
Are
so
you telling me that you are not a eukaryote?
Are you a pine tree?
Did I tell you that all eukaryotes are pine trees?
Yes. So are you a pine tree?
I told you. Can somebody back up the tape? When did I tell Kent Hovind that all eukaryotes?
Now, to be fair, I made fun of Kent saying rewind the tape, and Aron just said back up the tape. So Aron too believes this is on a fucking Memorex 90-minute cassette. Oh, it's just being archaic. You know, I say it in jest, just being playful. It's funny when we do stuff like that, as you show your age from habitual terms, you know. Like, do people really say rewind anymore? I feel like, you know, reverse or go back would have become more common at this stage. The fact that people still say roll up your windows kind of amazes me.
Eukaryotes are pine trees.
No, I didn't. You said no.
What
You
he
did
said,
say.
what
You
he
said.
said, what he said for
Oh, I got you. That would make sense. But yeah, I mean, I guess might as well address it here. It's nice if people would @tag who they're talking about. You know, it's not critical, but it helps.
clarification, what he said was that
Okay.
all pine trees are eukaryotic. They're all eukaryotes, but not all eukaryotes are pine trees. Correct?
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
But your
Okay,
ancestors.
so at no point in your evolutionary history did a eukaryote give birth to a non-eukaryote. So, and the same thing applies throughout. So all the hundreds of times that in the last 20 years, you kept saying a dog never produces a non-dog. I'm sorry, that's always been wrong. That's always been a straw man. That has never been a correct criticism of evolution. That has been a description of an evolutionary law, which you have failed to understand lo these decades.
No, I think I completely understand it. Dogs always
just
produce
demonstrated
dogs.
other, and we'll announce it again.
Let him get it out. Let him get it out.
I will say it again. You haven't understood it in 20 years, but dogs do always produce dogs. Do you know of an exception to that?
Because of the evolutionary law of monophyly, that is true. And dogs remain conoidean carnivores. They never became a non-carnivore when they produced the first dogs. Still a carnivore. Still a member of every one of its parental clades. Same thing with cats. Phylogenetic carnivores are still carnivores. Dogs, cats, both carnivores.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Are pine trees carnivores?
Because carnivora is limited to a subset of mammals and trees are not even animals, no.
But you think
I love it. Aron explains this stuff so very clearly. I mean, all of us do in discussions like this, or we try our best to. But Kent just runs with his script, runs with his bullshit. It'd be funny if it wasn't so pathetic.
elephants and pine trees and dogs are
Are
related?
still eukaryotes, yes.
So, but it was at some point they became carnivores. Something happened.
Yes, that's correct. And I've got a series of videos explaining the evolutionary stages of that, if anybody listening to this cares. It's called The Systematic Classification of Life, where I go through some of the major clades. We're up to episode 24, and we've just now gotten to mammals. So there's another dozen or so videos in that series at least.
Turns out that series would go on for a total of 50 episodes. I believe it's 2 or 3 solid days of content. At least 2 solid days. Some pretty interesting shit. Really, really amazing. Sometimes a little long-winded, but that's because Aron's being thorough. Honestly, if you put it on a marathon, it'll probably knock you out. But you're gonna, pick up a lot of info while you sleep. Oh, man. Good stuff.
That ought to be exciting. Okay. So pine trees and elephants and dogs are related. At some point, the ancestor of whatever that ancestor looked like, diversified, and obviously,
Mormonism's evolution, no pun intended, has been pretty interesting to see. I have noticed that even with the little bit I pay attention to theology in general.
elephants and dogs and pine trees look different today and behave differently, and are now in certainly different species. I would assume different families, and maybe
Families?
even kingdoms. Well, they're different kingdoms, plant and animal kingdom, aren't they?
The families and kingdoms really don't matter. Those are Linnaean constructs, and they're not really applicable. So the only thing that has a hard definition, the only thing that has a hard definition is, or the thing with the hardest definition is species. So everything else, all of these other taxonomic groupings, these grades.
I just gotta read this one out from Oceanus. Supernatural or not with ghosts? Yeah, sure. Doesn't matter. Show me the magic, baby. If they can't, theists should shut their stupid cockholes. God damn! People being savage up in here.
That Linnaeus came up with, they serve only as signposts anymore, because he wasn't aware of how many increments there were between each of these different levels.
So Carolus Linnaeus was not aware that a pine tree was different than an elephant?
Let's try this. Obviously, you're trying to misrepresent this as much as you can, because I never said anything like that. However, you did mention the 5-year-old could tell them apart. Now, what were the examples that you gave? A dog, an elephant, and a pine tree?
Do you think a 5-year-old could tell the difference between those?
Yeah, I think a 5-year-old doing the old Sesame Street game of one of these things is not like the other could probably pretty easily.
One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Can't
depict that the pine tree is the odd one out. Would you agree with that?
Very good. You're slowly getting it. There's hope. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. I can't imagine that anybody, even in your following, could possibly think that you're the one that understands this and I'm not.
I think they all believe I understand it and you don't. But go ahead.
Okay. Using the same description, you can find other things that are closer and eliminate the dog from the elephant by finding things that are closer to those. Using that same simple principle, once you realize derived synapomorphies, which things matter, which things don't. You can't decide that a certain type of parrot isn't a parrot because it's green, for example. You can't make up arbitrary rules like that. If you want to categorize any collective, you have to find the traits that are already contained within every member universally accepted in that set before you can decide whether some new addition belongs there or not. Do you understand that?
Well, let's say we're going to accept the traits of an animal to be something.
Okay, so you didn't answer that question.
Well, you've asked me about 14 questions here and
left
that
one
unanswered.
question. You didn't answer that one question.
Well, let's go back to the original.
You've got another question instead of the answer.
Well,
that's all right. It doesn't matter. Go ahead. You change the subject however you want.
just go ahead. You change the subject. We're just rolling with it. I don't care. This is already a train wreck. It is a train wreck carrying dumpsters that are on fire. And inside each of those dumpster fires is that little orange dog saying, "This is fine. Everything's fine." Then a fucking 747 comes out of nowhere and ruins the whole damn thing. It's the apocalypse here, baby. Good stuff.
Go back and listen to this tape, Aron. You changed the subject repeatedly.
No, I'm still on the same subject, and you're trying to derail. But go ahead. Change it. Whatever subject.
How about we do this? Because a lot of crosstalk. Aron, ask your question again, very directly, very succinctly, and then can't directly answer that single solitary question, not going back to anything that's been previously discussed up to date.
I mean, let's look at the things Kent can't do. He can't count. He can barely speak. He can't read. He doesn't understand the difference between a lunar and solar eclipse. He doesn't understand the difference between something being poisonous and being venomous. I'm legitimately amazed a man can wipe his own ass. Probably can't.
Just what question did you just ask that you want him to have a direct answer to?
Well, no, I didn't get to answer the very first one yet about what is a species or what is a biblical kind. I'm trying
All
to
right,
answer
let's
that.
start
right,
there
well,
because
then-
that is
is that
the same.
I think they're all related.
Topic has not changed. It's the same thing I've been talking about since the beginning. He thinks it's multiple subjects. It's
No,
not.
it's the
It's
same
just that he has no
topic.
clue what he's talking about.
I mean,
So please, let's get back to the one and only subject we've been discussing so far. Identify kinds as distinguished from other kinds. Give me a couple of different species, for example, that we can identify as being different created kinds. Things that ideally scientists would consider closely related. Not
Okay.
as far apart as you can find them, but something that scientists would say, well, these are both in this group, and you say, no, these are both individual creations. Give me that example.
Okay, I have in front of me a picture that I got from the internet 2 days ago showing carnivora, which includes panthers, the skunk, the otter, the familiar dog, the Canis familiaris and Canis lupus, the wolf, and they have lines drawn connecting them all to a common ancestor. And I would like to point out that in the panther kind, there are, according to
I've been hot mic the whole time. Dog Walker, pleasure to see you.
A to Z animals.com, 7 different subspecies of leopard, which differ in their appearance. The African leopard is the most common. I would suspect those 7 different leopards had a common ancestor, and it was a cat. Okay.
Okay,
Then it
so
says-
let me ask for clarification purposes. When I say kind and you say kind, we are obviously talking about something different.
Correct.
Now, you are describing, though you aren't aware of it, you are describing a clade. And when I use the word kind as distinguished from clade, the only difference is that the kind begins with a special creation.
There is an otter in the water. It's fater. Well, he'd never say. Maybe that's why he never says the word father. It's because he always says daddy. That's another weird thing about Hovind, that extremely juvenile way that he still says mommy and daddy. You're, at this time, 65, but dude, you're 70. Stop it. That's fucking creepy. God damn it. Oh, fucking hell. Where were we on this goddamn thing? This piece of shit done gone backwards on me.
Hybridization, by the way, a finch crossing over to another island and then hybridizing with other finches is.
Actually, give me a moment. I'm going to watch the replay, and I'm going to see exactly where we were, because I am not letting this shit fuck up. Give me just a moment. We are coming right back to where it was before everything went to shit. All right, live stream is up. I'm making fun of the water comment. Let me go back just a hair. Thanks for bearing with me, everyone. Let's see. Damn it. It doesn't actually show exactly where. Fuck. Fuck.
Not speciation. It can be, but it's very, very limited. It very, very limited. The vast majority of speciation events are just built-ups of genetic diversity. We have 4 different types of speciation that are now logged, and hybridization doesn't even account for any of these 4. So these are just built-ups of genetic diversity in different isolated groups, or even emerging within a same group.
Okay, well, let me ask you a simple question then. Does this buildup of genetic diversity have any limits? Is it
What limits would you propose? What
Okay.
limits might you be thinking of?
Okay, let's take limits on.
Okay, yeah, we were way back. We were at 39 minutes range. So thank you all for bearing with me.
What is their chromosome number? Is it possible they had a common ancestor? Tree kind. Yeah.
Okay,
I think
so
they're different.
the answer was a yes or no question about whether you follow this. Evidently, you do not. Do you understand that a kind is the beginning of a clade, the crown of a clade, from which there is no commonality? So that these 2, if you wanted to start with squirrel, if you want to call it a kind, then God created 2 squirrels, and then he separately created chipmunks and everything that is squirrel-like within that division of rodents. and then the parent category of rodents.
Yeah,
follow me?
I've never studied to see if a chipmunk and a squirrel could have a common ancestor. What is their chromosome number? Is it possible they had a common ancestor?
That's
Maybe.
what the phylogeny challenge is. It's to establish what a kind is, and a kind is not a clade. So if you're talking about parental groups from which that include all of their descendants, and that's what you're describing, then you're
Sure.
describing clades, not kinds. The difference between a clade and a kind is that the kind is a clade that begins with a special creation.
Yeah, it's an amazing principle that you think the creationists would jump all over, but isn't something they can actually defend because evidently the universe doesn't work the way they think it does. You would think there'd be creatures out there that would be clearly distinct from everything else, just completely unique. And that just doesn't happen. Everything is clearly related. You talk about, oh, common designer. No. Any kind of reasonable designer that is enjoying creating stuff is going to come up with things that have variations to them that are more distinct. There'll be a tendency for similarities in things if the same person, designs stuff. Architecture from certain people, paintings from certain people are going to have that same touch to them, but they can still nonetheless be vastly different and vastly unique. It wouldn't look like successive hodgepodging of things here, things there, things everywhere that we see in the actual world, which would make sense from an evolutionary standpoint.
So give me an example of two different kinds, two different special creations where those clades began with those special creations, but which science would consider closely related or within a parental clade.
Would you agree that the 7 different leopards of the world probably had a common ancestor and it was a leopard?
No.
You don't agree with that? Okay.
Well, no,
Well,
I agree that the leopards would have a common ancestor that was a leopard, and that all panthers also have a common ancestor with other cats, and that macrodonts also have a common ancestor with panthers and felines, because there's 3 different distinctions for cats, and that
Right.
the nympherids also are related to cats with a common ancestor, and that we get to further down, we also have viverids included, and then we also have canoids, which are the dogs, the bears, the weasels, and seals. All of these are genetically linked. It's not just lines on paper. And if you think that phylogenetics is just drawing lines on paper, then yeah, we need to have a long talk and this is it. So at what point could you show me 2 different created kinds that don't share a common ancestor?
Okay. I think the created kind, let's take the pine tree leopard example here, since we're on that. You believe they had a common ancestor. I do not. I think pine trees, I don't know how many varieties, I didn't look it up. How many pine trees are there? A lot. I mean, there's the loblolly, the longleaf, gee whiz, there's probably 1,000 varieties of pine trees.
Ah, yes. Bring up random names to make it seem like you know a fucking thing about what you're talking about. Good job, Kent. It's just transparent as a fucking sheet of glass. You know that, right? 06/45/2017.
Now, whether they had a common ancestor or not is interesting. I don't know, but let's assume that they did. If we can get 1,000 varieties of pine trees from an original pine tree, that is not evidence that a pine tree and a leopard are related.
It is evidence, however, that all of these conifers had a common ancestor, is it not?
I agree. They probably did.
So can you find me, same question, repeating the same question again, which you clearly you have demonstrated you do not understand the question, so I'm phrasing it again.
Okay.
I want you to give me not just another description of a clade, which you mistakenly referred to as a kind. No, that's not what a kind is. That's a clade. A kind is where the clade begins with a special creation. Can you give me 2 special creations that science would consider to be in the same parent category?
Probably the 4 different. I don't know if I had my next picture here shows that 4 different species of skunks. I mean, because this picture showed a skunk and a leopard as being related.
Yes, because skunks are mustelids.
His pictures that we can't see at all. Beautiful, Kent.
Which were a subset of Canoidea, and then your panthers, again, a subset of Phyloidea, both within order Carnivora. So
Sure.
are you suggesting then that God created skunks but did not create any of the other weasels around it, that all other mustelids? Or did he create a common ancestor of mustelids? And then we have to look at the common ancestor of mustelids along with the other related groups within Conoidea. Is the mustelid, is a skunk your created kind, or is mustelid your created kind? Which is it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think that this textbook shows the otter also is in here next to the skunk as being related. There are 13 varieties of otters, and they have.
There we go. We're at the otters again. They didn't already bring up otters earlier, I'm not sure. That was just the first timestamp I saw, so yeah, we had to go back.
Well, I gave you a hint that you needed to look up the phylogeny challenge before you address this, and you don't even know what the phylogeny challenge is.
The phylogeny, as I've clearly demonstrated, is drawing lines on paper.
Phylogeny challenge.
Yeah, Ken, let's try to clarify. He's not talking just about phylogeny. He's asking you, do you know what his phylogeny challenge is, which is something he has issued, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, dealing with the original kinds for what would be the beginning of a clade for the creationist point of view along those lines?
Yeah, I set it up so that most people who visit my channel would see the phylogeny challenge video first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. You want to know what the original created kinds were and how that is distinguished from the other created kinds and what prevents them from being connected. Is that?
No. The second part of the question is irrelevant.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can show me created kinds, then it wouldn't matter how that clade diversifies after that, or the number of subset clades within that, because you can have new clades erupt within those old clades, and they're still going to belong to the parent clade that they always were. And the same goes through entire evolutionary phylogenies, every one of them. They remain belonging to every ancestral category that their ancestors ever did. There was never became a non-dog. That argument is invalid. So show me two created kinds that science would consider within the same parental clade.
Hold it. If they never became something other than their parents.
Because of the law of monophyly that I just described. It's an evolutionary law.
So if there was something then that was the ancestor of pine trees and elephants where we started this conversation, obviously something happened. And what this is, nobody's ever observed this. See, science, I guess my definition of science is very different than yours. Science is things we observe, study, test, and demonstrate.
And that is exactly my definition as well.
Okay, then so far, every farmer
and we
in the
can
world,
observe, study, test, and demonstrate that the most primitive and simplest plants are in fact single-celled, and that they are eukaryotes.
And do you think?
And if we just teach the facts, if we teach the observable, testable, verifiable facts about this, then we come up with what Linnaeus came up with when he discovered a tree of life that should not exist. He was a creationist. He had no idea, no concept of evolution. In his time, species were immutable. You couldn't derive a new species. And yet he was seeing a tree such as you're currently describing. You don't realize it's cladistics that you're talking about, but that's what it is. He didn't have a concept of that, and he couldn't explain it. That's why he turned to the scientific community and challenged them to explain why is he seeing this.
Carolus Linnaeus to the scientific community. Make it make sense!
So did Linnaeus think that pine trees and elephants were related?
No. He was a creationist, but he did think that apes and people were the same thing. Indistinguishable, and he challenged the scientific community to find him a generic difference that accords to the laws of cladistics, or not cladistics, of taxonomy. And they couldn't. So they arbitrarily created a class of Pongo just to ease their own conscience about it. But then, of course, in the last 20 years or so, genetics has confirmed that there is no such thing as a separate family for the non-human apes. We are still apes.
Okay, I think it was dictionary.com or whatever, the word definition of cladistics, since you're trying to equate that with kinds. A method of classification.
I'm not. I want to clarify. You are the one who is doing that.
No.
Distinguished. No, yes. You are you're using the word kind to describe clades, and you are habitually avoiding the actual definition. A kind would be a clade that begins with a special creation. I distinguish these. You're the one equating them. Do not accuse me of making your mistake.
Well, let me just read you the dictionary definition of cladistics, okay, where clades come from.
Let me read you the dictionary definition of cladistics. Hovind, is your man?
a method of classification of animals and plants according to the proportion of measurable characteristics that they have in common. It is assumed that the higher the proportion of characteristics the two organisms share, the more recently they diverged from a common ancestor. So cladistics
That would
is
not be a scientific definition. I can help you with that. The scientific definition is a classification, as I previously described, with all of the criteria that each of these group should have. You have to make a total tally of everything that is included within that group before you decide whether something else belongs there. But the key word, which is not in your layman's dictionary, is that the cladistics is a classification that includes all its descendants. It doesn't make special exceptions for certain ones. For example, the clade animal, which is formerly known as metazoa, is multicellular eukaryotes with an internal digestive tract. Well, this is the simplest definition. That's what an animal is. That applies to you, right?
Oh, I definitely have an internal digestive tract. Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, and you're a multicellular eukaryote. So, I mean, by definition, then you are an animal. So there was no point in your evolutionary ancestry that an animal gave birth to a non-animal. Because of the law of monophyly, you are still an animal, and you always will be.
But hold it, an elephant in a pine tree, something happened. One's no longer an animal.
Well, let's just clarify this, because I think you guys are talking past each other, and I think Aron's asked this like multiple times, and I want to make sure that everybody gets equal time on this. So let's for clarification purposes. Aron, real quickly, can you explain what you mean by monophyletic clade, but specifically towards Kent's kind definitions? What I think we need to isolate is that all the things you've talked about, the pine tree and mammals, are still eukaryotic, right? They're different kinds of eukaryotes, right? But they're still eukaryotic, and they came from something in evolutionary theory that was non-eukaryotic at one point, right? They have a shared common ancestry. We don't even have to get into the genetics of the fossil record at this point. I mean, there's or embryology or any of the other things that confirm phylogenetics. We're just looking at the simple characters. We're looking at what Carolus Linnaeus would look at. So the commonality between the pine tree and the elephant is that they're eukaryotes.
Yeah, I knew someone would be like, that sounds like a Dalek, because it did very much sound Dalek-y, and I don't much care for Doctor Who anymore. You can blame my ex for that, but I still like the Daleks, and you would think she knew Doctor Who so well she'd understand where I come from with me liking the Daleks, but I digress. That's personal trauma that we're not going to discuss here. What we are going to discuss is how Kent just, naturally refuses to get monophyly, because, of course, he can't. It breaks down his entire view of the created kinds, because the only creatures that ever exist are the currently extant ones. And so the idea of nested hierarchies, excuse me, had to yawn there. This idea of these nested hierarchies and being able to group animals into them to the degree that we can just destroys the kind concept, because you keep on going backwards and you keep finding more and more broad categories to group everything into. And so what you're left with are a few key branches: animals, bacteria, plants, what have you.
Right. Neither one started from an animal. Being a eukaryote doesn't mean animal. So it means that it's referring to a cell that has a nucleus, right? And so that never changed. Now, at some later point after the division between plants on one side and the animals on the other, then we have this. But then we have many further divisions before we get to trees, and then conifers, and then pine trees. Just like we have many further divisions before we get to eutherian mammals and elephants and so forth.
Okay, so can you address that specifically for the audience, please? Because you do agree that trees and animals are all eukaryotic, right, Kent?
Correct. Well, they all have a cell with a nucleus. That is correct. Plant cells and animal cells, they're very different in many other ways, but yes, they both have a nucleus. So
all that roundabout way to answer a question. He has to throw in what eukaryote is to make himself sound good, and then take advantage of the slight silence in there and just start prattling on. That's what Hovind does.
That proves we're related. So because we both are eukaryotes, therefore elephants and pine trees are related. I'm just completely baffled at how a grown person could believe that.
I just mentioned that there are other categories that we can use. We're only right now looking at Linnaean characteristics.
Sure.
We haven't got into your genetics or embryology or the fossil record or any of that. We're just looking at the characteristics right now.
Okay, so I would say
we have to consider, we want to make sure that we don't adopt a belief at the onset, because of course that would be dishonest. And it would be dishonest to throw out any evidence that flies against whatever belief you want to adopt at the onset. So we're better off both not having a belief to start with.
Okay,
and
well let's start.
Look at the facts and the possibilities.
Okay, let's look at the facts.
Yeah.
Pine trees are made up of cells, all of which, originally, the ones that are still living anyway, have a nucleus. The dead ones, of course, the internal tree no longer has that. But yes, and elephants are made up of cells, and they have nucleus. I could look at that and say, this proves we have a common designer, because this system works really good.
You don't have to go that far. You don't even have to.
I don't.
And yet our digestive tract and stuff suck ass. Like, come on, Kent.
You can construct an entire...
Why don't we just absorb energy from what's around us? Why isn't that a thing? Why do we even need to consume anything to exist? Can't we just exist? Rocks don't need anything to just exist. The air doesn't need anything to just exist. Why can't life just exist? Why does life have to eat? Why does life have to convert energy from other sources? Why is that your God's design? Isn't that a little silly if you could do it a different way? But what do I know?
Tree of life, as Linnaeus did, without making that assumption. And you still come to the same inescapable fact.
You could also construct a tree of life and say, wow, look at the designer gave all this stuff the ability to reproduce.
Then again,
varieties.
You're making an assumption that is unjustified. We have to look at possibilities as well. Okay. So in order to say, and I know that you know that not everything is possible, because you've said many times about things that you don't understand that you think are impossible. So you know that we can't just say that anything is possible. You know that there's a limit, that there are things that are not possible. So we have to look at, and before we can say that something is possible, we have to verify that the possibility exists. There has to be a precedent or a parallel or a verified phenomenon to indicate that such possibility exists. Now, we know that evolution happens. We've seen how it happens. We know various different aspects about it. We know quite a lot, actually, about the evolutionary process and the evolutionary history and so forth. And so we know that these things occur. They're observable, demonstrable, verifiable, repeatable directly. Now, do we have a possibility for magic imaginary friend using a conjuration spell?
You have already said several things which I would have to disagree with. We do not know that evolution happens by my definition.
Okay, so you're saying that the definition that we've already had.
Let him finish out his answer.
Okay. In your mind, you know evolution happens. In my mind, I have a different definition of that. I think variations happen within the same kind, but they're limited to that kind. For instance,
but there's no definition of kind still given. That was.
It's like, okay, you're going to keep saying kind, but you haven't defined kind. We never got anywhere with that chat. So what you're saying now is quite literally meaningless. Just love it.
The core of what we've been talking about for the last half hour is trying to get you to define a kind as distinguished from a clade. Now, I've given the definition, and I've called you to give examples of that, and you failed to do so. What you have instead done was deny the very definition of evolution as being a fact. You would agree, and you have described already how you accept certain aspects of evolution, and not just change within a species. You're talking about changes between species, which means you accept macroevolution as well. I know you defined it as something else because you have to use equivocation. But just because you use the wrong definitions doesn't mean that your definitions are right. It means the scientific community has established what these definitions are, and you don't get to change them just for your audience.
And you don't get to put words in my mouth. I do not believe in macroevolution. By my definition.
But you described what you described that you accept. What you said you accept meets the definition that scientists give for what macroevolution is. Microevolution is variation within a species. Macroevolution is variation between species, and this includes speciation, and you accept that speciation.
And I'm just going to go on record as personally saying I hate even doing that distinction. I think it's all just evolution in the core sense. That this distinction, while it had its purpose when it was coined. In the grand scheme, has done more harm than good, and so it's kind of, if you have to differentiate, okay, but in the end, it really shouldn't be a focus of anything. That's just me, though, and it's really just a word game more than it is anything of practice. Doesn't change the practicality, the reality of anything.
Happens. So you accept that by definition, the actual, real definition, and not the false one you made up, that you accept what is actually really defined as macroevolution.
Let's make sure that Ken has equal time here, Aron, if we can.
That would be
yeah,
wonderful.
I want to make sure Ken.
Okay.
Please, we're trying to make sure you have equal time. But
It's nice that they're trying to be nice to Kent here, but it doesn't really go very well. Being nice to Kent just never gets reciprocal interaction in the grand scheme.
Well,
all right, just tell me when to speak.
I want to make sure you guys are talking about the same things, and I understand both your guys' positions. I've had many conversations with both of you gentlemen. Aron is explaining it from a very scientific and precise way of looking at it, and what he's asking you is for you to define your terms in a way that is from a creationist point of view, and they don't mesh. And I think that's why we're having a communication failure here. When you're talking about speciation, Kent, what do you mean by macroevolution? What do you mean by speciation? How much of it do you accept? Is that something along the lines of what you want to know, Aron, as far as your questioning?
Well, that's where I don't think anybody's ever given a really hard definition of species. Is a dog and a wolf a different species, yet they're the same kind of animal? Is a dog and a coyote and a wolf, they're different species, Canis lupus, Canis domesticus, but they're the same kind. So yes, I do accept that speciation happens, but who is getting, like they decided there's a new species of finch on the Galapagos Islands now, because one flew over to a different island and crossbred with different variety of finch. It still produced a bird. It still produced a finch. So if it's because some group.
And that's always a go-to. It's still of this, it's still of that. When that's the entire point of monophyly, that even if you were to abstract down through the generations, it would still be that. Hence why birds are still dinosaurs.
Group of scientists decide to call that a new species. That is not evidence for evolution. That's wishful thinking. That's SpongeBob imagination stuff. I agree. Variation.
Abdullah, welcome. Hadn't seen you in a hot minute. Good to see you.
Happen, and I agree. New species could be created if somebody wants to call that a new species. I don't know if the 200 species of squirrels are. I think they have the same kind of animal. So yeah, I think the word species is too flexible. I think the biblical word kind, able to bring forth.
And in my opinion, species is flexible because it has to be, because the criteria with which we can group living organisms together as a matter of practicality, the various conditions by which we go about that vary depending on the organism in question, particular traits we look at. It's like so many things, nuanced. That should be a shirt I make that just says nuance, because that is like the key thing that creationists just ignore. But I'm all about with this kind of stuff is the nuance of it, the finer details that do matter in this case. And there it goes doing that thing again.
Forth, so those 200 species of squirrels can probably bring forth babies. The squirrel and a pine tree cannot. They're different kinds. Squirrel and an elephant cannot. Whether squirrel and chipmunk, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll do some research on that, Aron. I'll get back with you. I don't know about chipmunks if they're in the same kind or not. Great.
We're the chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. That cartoon would come on before I'd go to school as a kid. I rather enjoyed the song. The show wasn't too bad, but a little opening theme to the late 80s Chipmunks cartoon, it was pretty special. And they were way less annoying than any other incarnation of chipmunks I've ever seen.
Good question. I will definitely work on that. But I think I could demonstrate that a squirrel and a pine tree are not the same kind. And if you choose to believe they got a common ancestor, that is your religion. There's no evidence for that. No evidence at all. That's a religion you believe in, and that's fine. This is America. You can have any religion you want, but you should admit it's a religion and quit calling it science. That's not science.
That's not science. Can't shut the fuck up. Jeff C. Hello, everyone. Hey, Jeff. How you doing? Abdullah saying they can't make all the things because of the time zone difference. Completely understandable. Curse the world for being round. Am I right? but I make sure to watch the broadcast later. I greatly appreciate that. Hope they entertain you. Hope they bring you some definite joy during the day. Let's continue.
So the evidence that we have, both genetic and character-based, that we have these commonalities, and in addition to what we've seen in the fossil record, these are all the facts. And I think you would even agree with this definition of evidence that it is a body of objectively verifiable facts, which are either exclusively, they're positively indicative of, or
Oceanus with several funny ones in here, but this one I'm going to point out. That's not science, meaning it didn't get the bent bovine seal of approval for what science is. I added the seal of in there out of habit, so apologize for bastardizing your text, oh mighty Oceanus Helios. Yeah, that's what Ken is doing right there. It's like, oh, it's not science because I say it's not science. It's like, who the fuck are you to act as an arbiter for what is and isn't science? You fucking fossil. Get bent, Kent.
or exclusively concordant with one available position over any other. And these would
Let the record show I have been forgiven. Woohoo.
confirm these beyond reasonable doubt. Would you accept that that is the definition of evidence, or that that is a working definition for the purpose of this discussion?
Well, yes, determining what a fact is. You mentioned that the genetic commonality, I think it's a fact, that, but whether that proves a common ancestor or common creator is the question. And you mentioned the fossil record.
You're interrupting him actually at this right now.
Great.
So hang on, Aron.
Well,
I promise we'll get back to you, but go ahead, Ken.
I'll go back on
He really is. Everything he does is exact flat earth tactics. And again, him not being a flurf is absolutely fucking incredible. Absolutely incredible. And his little demonstration the other day, which I covered in yesterday's stream, did not at all explain anything as to why he still didn't drink the flat earth Kool-Aid. Because if flurfs can just straight up ignore everything and anything he said like that, then, and evidence a million times better, then why the hell didn't Kent fall for it? It's mind-boggling that he doesn't, believe that.
Should have finished your statement, because I have been noticed both of you have been interrupting a little bit. So to be fair to everybody, Kent, finish what you're saying and then let Aron respond, please.
Several times he has mentioned that the fossil record is somehow evidence to support his theory that they have a common ancestor. I would contend there is no such thing as a fossil record. There are bones in the dirt. And
yet, up until recently with the final experiment and all, a lot of flirts have been doing pretty well with their bullshit. So, I don't know. Maybe he's just too stupid to learn how to make money off of it. That's probably it. Ken hasn't figured out how to monetize Flat Earth. Damn it, doing it again.
And indicating they died. But why would you think a bone from the dirt could do something which no animal today could do, which is produce something? If you find squirrel fossils in the dirt, you're going to
well, yeah, I guess when we're talking about the kinds of money that Kent wants.
Say, this is a squirrel, and it produced squirrels. That's all they produce today. But yet you think a bone in the dirt is capable of doing something no animal today can do, which is produce something other than its fundamentally 5th grade or 5-year-old level kind of animal.
Once again, because of the law of monophyly, I clearly do not believe that anything ever becomes not what its ancestors were. I've explained this repeatedly. So I do not believe that. Hybridization, by the way, a finch crossing over to another island and then hybridizing with other finches is not speciation. It can be, but it's very, very limited. It very, very limited. The vast majority of speciation events are just build-ups of genetic diversity. We have 4 different types of speciation that are now logged, and hybridization doesn't even account for any of these 4. So these are just build-ups of genetic diversity in different isolated groups, or even emerging within a same group.
Okay, well, let me ask you a simple question. And does this buildup of genetic diversity have any limits? Is it,
what limits would you propose? What limits might you be thinking of?
Okay, let's take limits on size as an example. Is there any? Do you believe there's a limit?
Yes, limit on size, because physical limits, as in limits derived or determined by the very laws of physics, are totally the same as genetic limits. Just wonderful logic there, Kent. And by wonderful, I mean fucking idiotic.
Limit to the size of dogs. Is it possible for dogs to ever become as big as a blue whale? There are animals as big as a blue whale, like the blue whale. So is it possible for an animal? Is there a limit on size? Could you get a dog as big as? Could you get a dog as big as Texas?
Godzilla is not possible, for example.
Very good, very good. So there are limits to this variation.
Yeah.
And okay, wonderful.
Okay. So there are what you're telling me is that there are structural limits imposed by gravity, but not actually by biodiversity. So there's no limit to biodiversity that you've yet given, only structural limitations according to physics, perhaps.
And here's where Aron calls him on it. Just so beautiful.
Well, no, okay, well, correct. Now, why don't we get dogs as big as elephants? Because
of structural difficulties. When they exceed 200 pounds, they are beyond their ability to withstand to grow any larger because of the structure they already have. They have to adapt a more improved structure in order to exceed that size. And the same thing goes with the reason the dinosaurs were so big was because they had a system already built in that allowed that to happen without a backlash. They had avian respiration, so they had hollow bones that they could breathe through, which made them far more energetic and powerful than we are. So that dinosaurs and mammals of equal mass, the dinosaur will excel because it'll be lighter and faster and stronger.
Well, you said the dog is limited and can't become as big as an elephant. There are animals as big as an elephant. It's called an elephant.
There are,
Christian. It's as stupid as Ken Hovind. It's called Ken Hovind. Fucking dumbass.
Are animals that are as big as an elephant, but they have to, as I just said, and I'm going to have to repeat again, the dog would then have to have a new adaptation to account for the larger size, because we also know bears come from dogs, and bears they don't come from dogs, they come from the common ancestor, but bears are genetically linked to dogs, and bears have excessive size. They don't have the digigrade gait and the hyper speed that dogs have, different derivations from the commonality.
Well, in your religion, they're different.
They're not. It's not a religion because it's not faith-based, and it's not a belief system. And it doesn't require belief. It doesn't teach.
Adam Skeptic popping in with a nice one. I make it a point to watch the debate he abandoned at least once a year. It's always nice to see Hovind get his ass handed to him. Yes, that is beautiful to go through. And something I love about that, was it that one? I'm not sure. In one of Aron Ra's things, and I think it's the Kent debate series, the background gets progressively darker as it goes on. It's really cool, and I almost feel like might be a Return of the Jedi reference, Star Wars, where Luke's outfit goes from white to gray to black between the three films. If it's not in the debates with Hovind, the video back and forth, it's somewhere. Also, those debates happen to be one of the only major groups of videos archived from Ken Hovind's side of things, are from his old channel before it got nuked. So between AJ's archive and reaction videos and what Aron archived, a lot of Ken's post-prison stuff is just plain gone. It's awesome. It does very good. I'm glad that was the right video set.
Belief. It discourages belief in favor of critical analysis and peer review.
Okay, well, Aron, bears produce bears, dogs produce dogs. You say they came from a common ancestor. That is a belief. We never observed
Why is
that.
it a belief to see a genetic link? If you've got evidence that shows the genetics are there, that dogs and bears and seals and mustelids are all canoidian carnivores, and they're all genetically linked. If you can do a parental test using the genetics, the same as you say a Maury Povich, you are the father. We show the genetic link. There is the evidence, not faith like you have, not just going on a book of old fables like you have. We have actual genetic evidence to confirm this.
So you have genetic evidence that a dog and a bear are related. And what is that evidence exactly? Because they have similar DNA?
Told you.
No, you didn't. You said no. You said there's the word genetics is not. I want to be specific. What exactly makes you think that something was the father? You are the father of the bear and the dog. What exactly would make you think that? What part of the DNA structure? Is it the number of?
The fact that Kent referred to that relatively well after Aron did, in a way more like how Maury did it than necessarily Aron did, seems to tell us that Kent actually watches daytime trash TV. Of course, maybe it's all he had to watch in prison. I don't know. I don't know how that shit works. Unlike him, I've never been in the prison for felony tax fraud.
Chromosomes? Is it the length of the chromosomes? Is it the arrangement of CATG? Exactly what is this evidence that you're saying
It's the arrangement of FUCKYOU.
claiming is evidence for this ancestry, the parental aspect of the ancestor of dog and wolf, or dog and bear?
I explained this in a series I explained this in a video called Caniform Carnivore Cladogram Construction. I like alliteration. I can't help it. And there's a backup to this that also covers the cat side of the family tree. And these are in a series of videos, a five video series called Falsifying Phylogeny, which explains a number of other evolutionary principles, including the evolutionary laws that I just mentioned.
Well, can you just give me a 2-minute summary here? What is your reason?
It is, as I just explained, and I'm repeating the explanation again. It's just like doing a parental test where you're matching the commonality to see whether this person is the father or that person is the father. You're just extrapolating further back.
And I'll ask you again, maybe you'll get it this time. What exactly are you looking at?
Deviant popping in the chat while she watches on Soot's quote-unquote giganormous TV screen. Nice. Very nice. Glad to have you here, as always.
To determine the parental?
I answered twice. I will answer a third time. Maybe you will be the one to get it this time, as I had it since the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we are just like a parental paternity test, where you're using a genetic matchup, right? Codon for codon, right? You're looking for the commonality between these genetic lines, genetic lineages. You're also looking at wherever there are applicable ERVs and such. Whatever, I can't remember the other term, whatever other commonalities take factor in genetic comparison. You're doing a genome sequence comparison to identify the ancestry, just like you would trace whether you are Danish in ancestry or Jamaican or what have you. It's the same concept.
So you're saying someone did a genome sequencing of a dog and a bear and found out that they have a common ancestor based on
Not just
ERVs?
someone, lots of people. Because the thing about science is that it has to be peer reviewed, which means that somebody does these tests and say, okay, I did these tests, and then other people have to go back and duplicate those tests and confirm that they get similar results, or they can confirm that this is what actually happens.
So you mentioned we should start with no belief whatsoever and just look at the evidence. Let's assume that we do study the bear and the dog and find out they have similar ERVs, they have similar genetic sequences.
Hang on, this is a funny one I never noticed. He brings up ERVs here, meaning he was at least somewhat aware of endogenous retroviruses before Conspiracy Cats brought them up during his discussion with Kent, where Kent famously said, "I'm not prepared for that." Interesting.
What then would you conclude from that? Would you consider the possibility that maybe the same author wrote the code?
The possibility, key word. Once again, I repeat, and I have to do that a lot here, that in order to establish whether there is a possibility, we have to show a precedent or a parallel or a verified phenomenon indicating that that possibility exists. And we have had, by your own admission, we have had speciation occur. We have seen evolution happening in real time. Not just in the fossil record, but also in the lab, live. So we know it occurs. And then we look at the characters of these.
But it's still a fly. It's still a bacteria. That's all I'll ever say to that. We've seen it happen, but he literally expects a pine tree to turn into an elephant. He expects rocks to just pop out whole goddamn bacteria. Look at this rock. It just pooped out fucking E. coli. There's your evolution. Hovind. Fucking idiot.
Simple physical characteristics. Well, what the hell? You look between the description of bears and of dogs, and then we look in the fossil record. We also find bear dogs and dog bears. Literally, seriously. We find bear dogs and dog bears, both. And then we have common ancestors basal to each that would their physiology looks a little bit more like a wolverine, but basically it's the common ancestor where it's still plantigrade, still like a dog, or it's still plantigrade like a bear, but still has a long tail like a dog.
Okay.
So we have a number of different facts. We have a body of different types of evidence, different bodies of evidence that all concord with each other. And you want me to consider the possibility, as yet unestablished, that a magic imaginary man went poof.
All right, so let's try to get this a little back on track a little bit. So Aron, you're saying there's a consilience of all these different branches of not just genetics, not just codons, not just ERVs, but comparative homologies and anatomy and a whole bunch of different other things. And Kent's basically saying, forget all that. There's a probability or possibility that it could be a common designer. That's
Exactly.
basically
so
the
in the
balance
description
is what
where
we're saying here.
he
Sorry, I was a little behind on stuff, but Aron said ERV first. Okay, good. Yeah, Kent wasn't prepared for ERVs. I had to go put my laundry in the dryer because, I'm multitasking. Real life up in this piece, yo, yeah. Catch up on stuff. Except we have no evidence for this author, exactly. The one who wrote the code. Spoiler alert, bitten bovine. Nature is lazy. Laziness wrote the genetic code. Minimal effort, and it does until it doesn't. Yeah. Every single thing about genetics, about anatomy, about every aspect of life is just chemicals doing what chemicals do. Those processes, whatever results from that, being tested against the environment, and then new modifications being tacked on top of the old ones. It's really that simple. Anytime you get Kent to deviate off script, you successfully destroy him. He's so bad at any type of free thinking. He is. He truly is. Dies until it doesn't. Best line ever.
asked for my two items of evidence for or my two best examples of evidence for evolution. I gave phylogenetics, which I've been trying to explain, and he's actually been explaining, but he doesn't understand that is what he's explaining. And then the other thing, which is that we actually know things to be true, demonstrably, verifiably true about evolution, where nobody knows anything at all about any magic imaginary designer. There is literally no possibility to consider, because he can't even show me a kind, which would have to be the most basic thing any creationist should cough up at the onset before we even talk about this. If you want to talk about all animals being created, you'd have to show me which ones are the ones that are created. If you're going to accept that some degree of phylogeny applies, where's the cutoff point? That's what I'm asking. That's what the phylogeny challenge is.
Yeah.
Put up or shut up, old man. Now's the time. Because seriously, there should be a defining point that created kind should be blatantly obvious, and it simply isn't. Kent will say it is, but clearly it's not. Otherwise, we'd all fucking see it. Oh, but we're being deliberately dishonest. No, I think you're just looking in a mirror and judging yourself there, Kent.
Let's make sure Kent is able to address this specifically and give him equal time on this. So Kent, he's kind of asking you, what was the original kind as compared to what we know to be speciation events? So you're agreeing that speciation occurs. So can you differentiate between, for us, what we know to be speciation, because you agree speciation occurs?
No, it's all in the dryer. My work clothes are drying now for the upcoming week. The week of normalcy, the week of blandness. It is what it is. Pays the bills. Because unlike Kent, I have a real job, real responsibilities, and contribute in a real way to my community.
To the original created kinds that were not derivated from some kind of original other species. So what are the original kinds that you're suggesting exist that supersede all?
Yeah, see, I've heard that shit. If debating Kent requires me doxing myself to him, he can totally fuck right off with that, because that ain't happening. That's just not. He will debate on my terms, or he isn't getting a goddamn thing from me.
All the evidences that Aron is providing for us, and we'll give you plenty of time to speak on this. So Aron, let him actually go on this, please.
Thank you. I think I've answered it 5 or 6 times, but if they're able to bring forth, according to Genesis,
Yeah, and answered a goddamn thing ever, Kent. Now shut the fuck up.
chapter 1, they're the same kind. Now, have they diversified? He keeps mixing the word species and kind. I don't use that word species very often because it's a flexible term. I think a dog and a wolf are different species, as I mentioned, yet they're the same kind of animal. There are 200 species of squirrels. They're probably the same kind of animal. There are 1,100 species of bats. They're probably the same kind of animal, called a bat.
God damn, that's savage. Okay. I wanna make this go in light by saying I still think it's funny and telling. This is from Adam Skeptic. I think it's funny and telling that his whack and atheist thing started as an attempt to slowly distance himself from finishing the debate. He was getting pressure from everyone to finish it, and I think he's still getting pressure from us. We should probably double up on that. But then, well, ain't that swell pops in with Kent contributes to his community. Just because those contributions mean reducing the toddler population doesn't mean he doesn't contribute. Good God, that's savage. Oh, I love it. Kent needs equal time. Time to gish gallop. Exactly.
But if you want to,
from the gish to the gallop, yeah. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not gonna come up with dance themed hip hop tracks for everybody. I apologize for trying to be funny there. I will treat myself accordingly. I don't know. I'm just being stupid. Let's continue. Also, there is a storm running through, so there is a chance the stream could just die out of nowhere. And if it does, you can blame Thor, possibly Odin, but generally Thor.
to look at the similarities, I have in front of me an article from, let's see, where was this published? Farm and Garden magazine, Monday.
Farm and Garden magazine. Yes, that world-renowned source of scientific information, fucking Farm and Garden magazine. Good Lord. I forgot about that.
August 15th, 2005, about they deciphered the DNA of rice. And they said fruit flies have 13,600 genes in their DNA code. The humans have 20 to 25,000 genes. Rice has 37,544, and maize has 50,000. So we could make a phylogenetic tree, and if we live long enough, we're all going to be turned into maize, and the cows can eat it. That
literally, by definition, isn't a phylogenetic tree. You dumb piece of shit.
This here. So I think it's obvious that rice and humans and flies are different kinds. And there's a place called baraminology.com from the Hebrew word baramin, about kind, that is so far as I think they've said there are probably about 7,000 or 8,000 kinds of animals on land that breathe air. This would not include insects or fish that didn't have to go on the ark. About 7,000 kinds of animals probably went on Noah's ark. Some say even less than that. But I don't know. Let's just pick that number and say 7,000 to 8,000 is a reasonable number of kinds of original animals that had to come off the ark. A fish would do just fine in the flood. But I think that everybody should recognize that they're limited. I don't know exactly where the limit is, but we talked about the dog. Can they become as big as an elephant? No, but there are elephants that are as big as an elephant. And they certainly can't become as big as Texas. So certainly there are limits to the variations within the kind. There are sometimes physical limits because of bone structure, etc.
Love how he's just monologuing his script. It's like, can't shut the fuck up.
Or the percentage of oxygen in the air. Obviously, there were gigantic insects on this planet. I mean, 52-inch dragonfly fossils have been found. If you want to talk about the fossil record, they talk about 2-foot grasshoppers that they couldn't survive. They couldn't breathe today because they breathe through spiracles in their skin. They don't have a lung system like we do. So we could talk about fossils if you'd like. I have quite a large collection of fossils. I think all the fossils indicate something was very different on this planet. And I would take this to be before the flood came. And all the fossils, nearly all the fossils, probably formed because of one big flood event. So my definition of kind, and he keeps intermixing the word species, and please don't do that. If they can bring forth, they're the same kind. There's one kind of animal called a squirrel. There are now 200 species of squirrels. There's one kind of animal called a bat. There are now 1,100 species of bats. There are 13 species of, I think it was 13 species of panther. Okay, but they're still a cat. They're still the same kind of animal, and they probably came from a common ancestor. So I would say he has not demonstrated at all that there is any scientific evidence that a bat and a pine tree and an elephant and a squirrel are related, other than having similar DNA, which could just as well be the DNA code, the same author. If you look at all the books Mark Twain wrote, you'll notice that, excuse me, thousands of similarities because they have the same author.
Oh, there it is. We may have the first appearance of Kent Hovind's lingering cough. I can't say too much because I've got a lingering cough as well, but you know, I know how to mute my microphone.
If you look at all the books in the world that are written in English, you will notice all of them use the same 26 letters. Wow. What does that prove? That the books wrote themselves, or that that's the code? The code with which you write English is the 26 letters of the alphabet, and the code with which DNA is written is the same because we have the same author of this code.
I fucking hate the DNA code analogy, and that's all it is an analogy, and these idiots take it literally. It's like, it's just chemicals doing what chemicals do. Don't overthink it.
And his name is God, not some man. This is God himself, who will be the judge one day. So I'm trying to answer the question. He keeps asking it over different, but I think I have answered. I apologize. The law of monophyly that he keeps talking about is that they are always going to produce the same kind of offspring, and I agree. But yet he thinks a pine tree and an elephant have an ancestor.
Don't think I didn't notice him saying monophyly earlier instead of monophyly. That kind of changes what you're saying there, Kent. I just didn't have a good joke to respond to it with, but he did say monophyly there.
Therefore, somewhere along the line, that law didn't work.
I'm not sure.
Why would that law have not worked?
Yeah, I'm
Why
not
do you
sure
imagine
how that's kind of involved in that there, Kent.
Yeah, I mean, because you've said everything wrong here. I have never once, not one time, mixed kind with species, though you repeatedly have, and I have cautioned you against that. You ramble on about irrelevant ideas you don't understand, but you obviously have not answered my question once. Now, I will paraphrase that for you in a moment. But I first want to know the answer to the question I just asked. Where did that law not work? I mean, so we have according to one possibility that we actually know is a possibility, and the other one is not a possibility. We have an evolutionary possibility, and we have a common ancestor that is a single-celled eukaryote. Now, the first plants were also single-celled. The definition of mammal is when those cells combine into multicellular, and we've actually seen that occur directly in the lab too. So even that level of macroevolution has been directly observed. So at what point did that rule of monophyly or law of monophyly break down?
You said three different things here. You said you have seen single-celled animals produce, or single-celled, I think you said animals, produce multicellular animals in the laboratory.
Wrong. I will clarify cellular. Right? You can't.
One of those little factoids about biology I just love is that animals have to be multicellular by definition. Fascinating stuff.
Have a single-celled animal by definition.
Okay.
When you have multicellular eukaryotes form together and then also form an internal digestive tract, then you can classify it as an animal.
So you're talking about a colony of cells that has a digestive tract, and this is are you saying this is evidence?
If it has an internal digestive tract, then yes. If we're talking about a colony of eukaryotes with an internal digestive tract, that would meet the criteria for the character-based criteria for what we call an animal. However, in phylogeny, it's based on your ancestry, not necessarily your characters. For example, whales and snakes are still classified as tetrapods, even though neither of them.
All right, so we've established the law of monophyly is the law of the lonely female horse. Just no one around. No one to give her oats. No one to tell her she's a good girl, give her scratches on behind the ears. She's got a saddle, but no one to ride. No other horses to gallop with. Please donate your shekels to the monophyly fund so we can get that horse a good home. Oh man, I'm so burned out from Hovind. Anything sounds like a dream to me right now. I'm going to play the fuck out of some Guild Wars when this stream is over. But let's continue.
Have 4 legs anymore, and many of them are not even adapted for life on land anymore because evolutionary.
Ooh, and I do want to say we have broken the 2-hour mark, which is actually when I intended to end this stream, regardless of where we are. But we've got 70 plus viewers and a nice lively conversation. So I am going to keep going, but I will ask, because I have to, if you can spare any shekels as a super chat and you're feeling generous, fire away. If not, I totally understand. We all have lives to live. Not all of us have money to just be throwing at YouTube creators. But if you can, if you're still able to, or if you've been on the fence on and decide maybe I want to, now would be cool. We're also coming up pretty close to 1,000 subs on the channel. So that's awesome. And I do also want to take this time to thank each and every one of you for watching, commenting in the chat, being here in one way or another. You rock. Let's continue.
Ancestry. Likewise, a human would be defined as having a brain of a certain capacity and, having 2 arms, 2 legs, and so forth. But people are born without any number of these criteria. We would not say they were not human anymore, because we base the classification on their ancestry. So they are still human even if they're born without those characteristics.
So all the ancestry from here on out will, like, for example, humans, they're all going to still be humans. They'll all still be mammals. They'll still be all eukaryotes.
No matter how much they
no
change.
matter how long down the line. Now,
And all of Kent's descendants will be fucking assholes.
has made the claim, though, that for some reason the law of monophyly has broken down at some point, and I'm not sure if he's answered that yet, where that broke down.
He hasn't answered anything yet. He hasn't answered what a kind is. He's the one who keeps mixing them. Well, I keep...
I've been laughing this whole time. He hadn't answered anything yet. Oh, it's great. Oh.
Saying they bring forth, he keeps going back to the definition of species as if that were the definition of kinds, and he keeps excusing.
Dog Walker providing 2 of the king's pounds. Happy new yeed. Yep, no new year. We're in a new yeed. We've advanced. Thank you so very much, and yes, happy new year to you too, my friend.
That when he describes a kind, every time, kind as he has been doing, like the squirrel kind and the bat kind, those are the squirrel clade and the bat clade. He doesn't understand there's a difference between kind and clade, and the difference is that a kind began with a special creation. He hasn't shown that that is possible. He's damn sure hasn't shown that there's any evidence of that, and he hasn't been able to dismiss the evidence that there is for evolution. All he can do is insist that it is a religion when it clearly, absolutely, certainly is not.
No, Ken, you said the original. You think there's like 7,000 original kinds. Now you saying those are the created kinds? 7,000 original created kinds.
Let's start with that as a working hypothesis. There were 7,000 created kinds. This is only of animals. This is not insects. This is not plants. This is not fish. Animals on land in whose nostrils was the breath of life that had to go onto Noah's Ark. I don't know how many kinds of created plants there were or kinds of created fish. That would be a different story. But let's start with the working hypothesis that there are original 7,000 created kinds. They have now diversified into millions of species. I agree. Speciation happens. I do not think that's any evidence for evolution. I think the speciation is always limited, very limited, in many ways. And I don't think there's any way Aron's going to come up with any answer to how we get new information. For instance, this single-celled creature that develops a colony and has a digestive tract now has to develop wings and the ability to fly. This is adding information that they're just. I'd love to hear his answer. Where does the additional information for this cell come from, or this cluster of cells, to learn to fly, to learn to reproduce, to learn to eat, to learn to seek out food, to learn to avoid, unpleasant conditions?
Information stored in genetic code is also a concept that I reject because it makes for a nice analogy, and one that is at least somewhat applicable in a sense, but it's taken way overboard by creationists. It still boils down to chemicals doing what chemicals do. This is just a whole long-ass, specific-ass chain of chemical reactions. It's annoyingly complicated, requires a good chunk of time that they claim doesn't exist, and that these things could never happen. But obviously, aggregate processes of slightly beneficial quirks and tweaks that are selected for by the environment versus against, you'll eventually get something that could be described as new information, usually by modification of some structure that's existing. Everything's just structural modifications all the way down. It's kind of beautiful, really.
Be it temperature or sunlight or whatever. There are thousands of features that today's animals have. Obviously, the ability to move about, to seek a mate, to seek food, to ingest and digest food. And this had to come from a single cell. Where it looks to me like additional information is being added. Where does this come from? Which is, I think, another giant problem for those who believe, capital B, believe in evolution.
I'm guessing by the space that I'm
Capital B, believe that Hovind is capital S, stupid. Hovind.
allowed to speak again.
Oh, sure. Yeah, please
Yeah.
do. Yes.
Okay, so you said that what you proposed just now, which again is you've just expressed how you don't understand what you're talking about, but everybody listening to this has gathered that much by now.
Oh,
You said that this would be that what you propose is a working hypothesis. And what actually makes it either working or a hypothesis? What experiment could we use to vindicate this idea if it were true, or falsify it if it is not?
okay. Let's see if we can cross an elephant and a pine tree. Let's get the sperm or egg of an elephant and the pollen from a pine tree and see if we can get them to produce something. Or let's look at let's see, can they, the Bible says they will bring forth after their kind. If we start with 7,000 kinds of animals, can we get them to interbreed? You think it's possible for a bat to interbreed with a bird?
Are you saying that God created a first pair of bats and also created a first pair of birds? Is that your answer to my question?
I don't know how many first pairs of birds there were. Maybe there were 50 pairs.
Okay, so
of
that
birds.
is not an answer to my question then.
I am answering your question.
But you're answering that you do not have an answer is literally
Kent, you ain't saying a fucking thing.
what your answer is.
My
You don't
answer
have
is-
the answer.
My answer is there are probably many original created kinds of birds. I don't
Okay,
think
so
you
then-
can put
and
all
then-
birds.
Okay.
You put birds in the same kind as pine trees.
Okay, yeah, they're both eukaryotes. So
that's proof.
your experiment by taking the egg of an animal, a mammal, and combining that with a pine tree, having no recollection to the fact that we're talking about animals on one side and plants on the other, you think that this verification of evolutionary law somehow refutes evolutionary law and instead supports the magic imaginary friend theory?
Well, let's avoid the pine tree then, if that's your stumbling block. Let's take an elephant and a whale.
I'm not the one with the stumbling block here. Let me help
You're
you
not?
with this. I can clarify this
Okay.
question a little bit better. I will just
Okay.
do it as a short series of yes or no. Are mallards related to pockards, wood ducks, and muscovies?
Don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know how many kinds.
I don't know. Kent Hovind, 2018. Probably.
Could have created separate kinds for pockards. Pockards could be a kind unto themselves, even though they're all ducks.
As I said,
So
I
he
don't know
didn't
how
create
many.
a duck kind. And ducks and chickens are in the galliform kind, and galliforms are also with the neonace and paleonace in the bird kind, along with Euornates and Ichthyornis and Enanthiornis and a number of others, and Archaeopteryx, I guess, as well. At what point do we have a created kind? Where is the evidence to indicate the possibility of a creator?
Well, where is your evidence that a duck kind and a whale kind are related?
Just completely not answering the question. Just ask a question as a response. That's not how stuff works. You're supposed to be a professional debater, Kent. Little things like this really stand out in retrospect.
Well, the fact that you can't define what a kind is probably the first problem. But the fact that they are both within the same parent categories, they are both animals, for example.
That proves we're related. And plus don't forget,
It proves they're still the same kind, doesn't it?
Well,
Unless we go with
don't-
what the actual definition of kind is, which is where the clade begins with a special creation. So are you saying that God created a certain group of ducks and then created another certain group of ducks, that he created a kind of mallards and a kind of pockards, that he created every different species individually? Is that what a kind is? Or is it something larger? Is it a larger category than that?
You just used the word kind and species in the same sentence, and yet you said you don't do that. Go back
And I
listen to the
distinguished
debate.
them. I did,
Okay.
because I don't mix them the way you keep accusing. You do.
I did a
You're the
Google
one that
search.
keeps saying if they bring forth, which is the definition of species, not kind. I keep correcting you on this, but you do not correct yourself. That's why after 20 years, you still repeat the idea that I'm supposed to believe that we came from a rock, even though I've seen a dozen people correct you on this very point, and you've never fixed it.
It doesn't need fixed. Evolution does teach.
Yeah,
we came from a
nobody
rock.
believes.
There goes Kent's weird ass way of talking. It doesn't need fixed. Lacking a 2B in there, buddy. And again, the whole we came from a rock thing, it's like, shut the fuck up, Kent. What you're saying is not what the scientists say. That simple. Then again, what do we expect from Kent Hovind?
No evolutionary biologist, nobody promoting evolutionists believes we came from a rock. Nobody. That is a lie on your part, which you have never corrected.
I can say, and if I can interject, if you don't mind, I've actually brought the same thing up to you a couple of years ago. But I have never seen any evolutionary biologist or anybody advocate that evolution teaches that we came from a rock. I have only heard that from creationist source. So can I ask you, do you have any citation that we can look at from a some kind of evidentialism from a evolutionary textbook that says evolution claims we came from a rock?
I think I showed very clearly from dozens of textbooks. You tell me.
You didn't answer the question at all. You showed not one textbook that supports that argument ever in your life. Not just tonight, never.
Aron, this original cell that you say became the ancestor of the whales and the pine trees, what did that come from?
You have to assume that it's the ancestor because we have other lines of evidence that draw that. Right now, we're only going to the right now. We're only talking about the facts and the possibilities as we see them.
Yeah, which textbook has that in there? Because I've asked that question before, actually, and I still haven't got an answer. And I'm curious. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible here. I really would like an answer to that question because it's been brought up before, and I've had other creationists say there are textbooks that say, according to evolutionary theory, we evolved from a rock. And I have yet to find a single textbook that says that. If you have one, I honestly would like to look for that, and I will.
Yes, because you will never find a textbook that explicitly says anything like that. The most you'll find is, silicate substrates being mentioned in some capacity and possibly some layperson's terms. And that being a role as some sort of substrate for stuff to form on, or as something bearing particular resources, a place for things to happen, much like your home is a place for things to happen. It doesn't mean you originated from your home, that it spawned you. It's in a video game where that's your fucking spawn point. Gotta click on my bed, make sure, go to sleep after 3, don't stay up for 3 days or the fucking phantoms attack. Don't need that. But Kent and Matt Powell continually go on this shit, and I say something about it, and you get other creationists commenting on the video. Yeah, I don't agree with the author on this. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. You're sitting there trying to defend these clowns. Come on. I digress. Little tired of this right now, but we're powering through because I owe it to you because you're all awesome.
I will read that.
There's not a textbook that even allows for that.
I am calling it up right now. But in the meantime, while I get this in my PowerPoint, I have like 10,000 slides now. Do you believe this original cell came from a primordial soup, which came from the in the oceans or a nice warm pond or something like Darwin? Where did this original cell come from? Where did the first living cell come from?
I did a video on this also simply titled Abiogenesis, which is set as an instructional material for middle school students, in which I explain that I don't necessarily subscribe to just the primordial soup. That's a possibility, I suppose. There are a number of overlapping ones. There are more than a dozen different processes that are distinctly different from each other, and none of them qualify as the evolutionary processes, but which also any number of them could be true at the same time. Almost all of them could be true at the same time.
Okay, so I'll ask the question once again. Where did the first cell come from? What do you think? What does Aron think is the answer to
These nuts, Kent? Who the fuck cares?
Where did the first living cell come from?
As was explained in the video when I answered this the first time, giving it again, let's see, how can I paraphrase this? I believe in I think the RNA first example is probably the best supported. I think everybody universally agrees with that.
Either the RNA world hypothesis or some kind of related.
Yeah, the primordial soup was it was a good one for its time.
That's back in the 70s.
Yeah, but RNA first appears to be it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with the cell, because that's what he's asking about, is he wants to go to he wants to skip a whole bunch of different stages and go just to the first cell. And then we're talking about hypercycles, where you have a phospholipid bilayer, which already includes replicative RNA, not DNA yet. But I think before we can classify as life, we don't necessarily have to have DNA yet, but it's enough to just have RNA.
Self-replicating RNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now, and where did this RNA come from? You agree? I think we both agree that
Why
RNA
are we
is
talking
incredible.
about that instead of evolution, which is the thing we were supposed to be discussing tonight?
Yeah, and the
Because
question, the question
you
that was
told it-
posed.
you asked me a clear question. Where is the evidence that you believe you came from a rock?
But
I'm trying to get you. I think if you guys would admit it, this RNA had to come from the water somewhere, from minerals in the water, and the minerals came from a rock.
Kent,
No,
And the planet Earth
No.
cooled down.
that's actually not the
No.
hypothesis, Kent. But
That's-
Kent,
that's-
the
that's
question
wrong.
the question I've asked this before, and I know Aron's frustration on this quite well. For evolution to
Yeah.
occur, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Aron, but for evolution, you have to have genetics, you have to have genes, you have to have a change of allelic frequency in a
but
population.
also to address his misunderstanding about this, when there was the Murchison chondrite that landed in Australia in 1969, which was that would we would all accept that was a rock, but it was a rock that was also found to contain many different dozens, I think, different amino acids and some unknown chemicals of extreme complexity, but they were not themselves rock. So at 0 point in our ancestry were we ever descended from a rock. Nobody, nowhere, never, ever thought this. You have been wrong your whole life about this. Fix that error.
So this meteorite that was found in Australia is your answer. It contained things. In other words, life came from outer space.
I mean, I'm loving all the comments, but especially loving this one from Tyler West. Did Urey and Miller pour water on a rock until amino acids popped out? No. So shut up, Kent. But it takes intelligence to pour water on the rocks, and the rocks came alive and said, "Scoot over, honey. I got a 15-foot whale penis." Ken Hovind. My search history contains bestiality, allegedly.
Space? Is that what
Wrong.
you're trying to imply?
Wrong.
Wrong?
What I was
Then
explaining is
help me.
the distinction between the amino
Ken Hovind's the type of motherfucker to still use Internet Explorer.
acids and the rock matrix they were found in. They are not rock themselves, nor were we.
Okay, would you tell me, are amino acids made of the 92 naturally occurring elements?
Being a part of a natural occurring element does not in any sense make you a rock. If you freeze oxygen, would you call that a rock?
Well, a supercooled crystal like ice, I guess, or I'm not sure if
We're
that's...
talking about
Hey, look at him trying to sound all fancy. Well, super cold crystal, what the fuck, Kent? It's not what he's talking about.
oxygen right now.
Yeah, I don't know if...
Frozen hydrogen. Can you freeze
you're-
hydrogen to make
well,
it into a rock?
You're diverting to a different topic now.
The same topic, the same topic you would like to divert away from. But yeah, it's if we cannot ever refer to
You're diverting to another topic. Translation? I'm not prepared for that.
these things as rocks simply because they're frozen, because they're not actually minerals, then we cannot call them rocks. At no point ever were we rocks. No evolutionary biologist ever.
Thank you, Oceanus Helios. I can tolerate your mocking impression of Cunt Hovind more than his actual voice. Well, thank you. Caruso Tomato is very pleased with that, and we'll talk in the third person from now on, because Caruso Tomato is obviously the true Lord and Savior of the Brotians. I don't know. I'm just running here. Hovind sucks. Fuck you, Hovind.
Thought that we came from a rock. Why would you believe something so dumb as that evolutionary biology?
Oh, Jeff C. with a funny one. I was listening while hoovering and mopping. I was also yelling at Hovind. My neighbors might be worried. If your neighbors aren't worried, you aren't passionate enough about debate. Even if this goes back to 2018 and it's just us laughing at it. Oh, but shit. This is the point for us to have fun. Love it.
Biologists think we came from rocks.
Well,
Why
I
do
don't
you
believe.
keep repeating this
believe.
lie, no matter how many times you've been corrected?
Well, I haven't been corrected. You think
You've been
I've
corrected right now,
so what?
just now,
Okay, so
not
what?
by
Okay.
me, not
Okay,
just by
trying-
me.
what evolutionary biologist in history has made that claim that we evolved from rocks? So I'm 48 years old, and I've never heard that except for creationists say it ever.
Okay, let's. I'm looking for the slides in the textbook now, but I have hundreds of textbooks. Do you believe that the Earth
Never read
cooled
any
down?
of
Do you believe the Earth cooled down
Okay, well, that's
4.6 billion years ago?
Kent, with all due respect, you are changing the subject right now.
No. This is exactly the point. Do you
No,
believe?
exactly the point.
No, I'm Ken Hovind. I'm the arbiter of when the subject changes or not. One topic at a time, except when I gish gallop and jerk off to 5,000 things at once because I got to stroke my fucking Evo. Hovind! Fucker.
Point was for you to identify kinds. That was the only way that you could deal with my two items of evidence that I gave, was that we know things that are true to be, we know things that are verifiably, demonstrably, observably true about evolution, where we have no such information about creationism. That's one you have failed to address. You simply denied that it exists, and you redefined everything through the fallacy of equivocation, and you have failed to address the phylogeny challenge, so you can't address my issue with phylogeny either.
Oh, we're on to 5 different topics. Let me answer the
Two.
one about the rock.
Well, they're the
We're
same
still on-
topics. These are the same topics.
Okay.
They're just
Okay. I have
they're
in
the
front
same
of me
topics.
the answer to your question. Here is a first grade textbook in my collection.
Here is a first grade textbook. I am incapable of reading it because I am Kent Hovind and I am fucking illiterate. Hovind, can't read for shit.
Which says Earth has changed much since its formation 4.5 billion years ago. Do you guys believe the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, or 4.6 or 4.6297 and 3 months?
I will have to defer to the experts on this because I don't know the thermodynamics or the physics. There are other people who do that. I do phylogeny.
I'm showing you from.
That's one I took from this debate, the defer to the experts. That's an extremely powerful statement in and of its own self, and something that a lot of us should do more often, or at least try to work in the event that we may not be the most articulate in a subject, since creationists like to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, or more correctly, what doesn't stick. And usually all of us in our particular special interests will have a hyper focus on something. Sometimes you do just have to defer to the experts on something, because that's what we literally all do. And indeed, it's what Kent does. He just doesn't want to admit it. Because I haven't seen him pray to his God to make a computer better, and then that work, magically make a computer that'll do all my streaming shit and put one of my PowerPoint slides and not crash every 5 seconds. And make sure my audio works for once, God damn it.
From the textbook, a first grade, I could show you from every year textbook.
From the textbook, Hovind, voice crack, Hovind.
That the Earth formed 4.5 or 4.6 billion years ago, and it was a hot ball of rock. This is what the books teach.
Okay.
If
Is metal also rock?
Well, yeah.
I've heard that it was rock and metal. My textbook said it was rock and metal. Matter of fact, I think my textbook said rock, metal, and gases.
So did this
So
hot
how do
ball
you
of
distinguish rock from metal?
Well, that would be an interesting question.
Well, it usually depends on the playing styles. Metal is usually a lot faster and more aggressive, have prominent with power chords and intricate solos, and usually gain/distortion effects will be even higher. Rock usually stays pretty subdued. It sounds like slightly more aggressive jazz or blues. More blues than jazz, because that's where it evolved from. Oh, we're talking about actual minerals and physical matter and not music. I apologize.
I think there are quite a few
Yeah,
metals
wood,
that
especially
most
since
people.
our bones are made of calcium, and that's considered a metal too.
Sure.
And you've already established
I'm
that
pointing.
oxygen cannot be considered a rock even if you freeze it.
Before you
So,
dance around the subject,
Again,
I'm showing you the
verified
answer.
that nobody ever believed that we came from rocks.
I'm
Not
showing
even
you
your
right
Hang on,
textbook.
you guys are talking over each other now. Ken, what you just said, what you just quoted from that textbook, I just don't think answers that question. That doesn't involve evolution. Evolution is something that requires genes to have a change of genetic frequency of the alleles. Whether the initial sources, you can go back to where they came from, the Earth, where they came from stellar nuclear synthesis, where they came from the Big Bang. You can always go back where the elements came from, but you're not asking we're not asking where the elements came from. We're asking you. You're saying that evolutionary theories.
I just want to shout out Falk Firebeard here for saying Kent is an idiot. You are very, very correct, and I think the entire audience is in agreement with you. At least all the audience that actually matters. My wonderful friends. Let's continue.
States that we evolved from rocks. I have yet to ever see that, and what you quoted has nothing to do with evolution.
Well, that's where in the last 20 years.
Reggio's popping up. Been listening for a while. Heard rock and metal brought up and waited for a reply like yours. Hell yeah.
Maybe because of my seminar. I'll take credit for that.
No, I'm almost 50. I've never heard it ever before in my life, except for what you've said in the past and other creationists.
Well,
so
this
I'm
is
still
wonderful.
not seeing anywhere
Kyle,
it has said that we have evolved from a rock.
Well, then God sent me here to help you then, because the textbooks clearly teach the Earth cooled down 4.5 billion years ago, and it was a hot ball
But that's
of
planetary
rock.
formation. That's not evolution.
Right. When do we start with evolution?
That's why
you're not up to the evolutionary part yet. You're at planetary formation.
As Kent continues to play his 6 stages of evolution card when they're explaining in explicit detail that definitionally evolution requires genes. So all these other things Kent likes to lump in have to have already happened before you can start discussing that. You can't start decorating the interior of a building if you haven't built the building yet. And granted, you can plan stuff, you can conceptualize, but you can't do the actual fucking decoration. Doesn't tend to work so well. What are you gonna do? Stick the lamp just on a grass field somewhere? What the fuck?
Yeah, we're not talking about concretion here. We're talking about evolution.
You can go back to the nebula hypothesis, but that doesn't get you to evolution yet.
And even if we were to misdefine it the way he is here, where he wants to take descent with genetic and inherent genetic modification and somehow extrapolate that to planetary concretion, still we didn't come from rocks.
Yeah,
because this is obviously not a planet just of rock.
I'm gonna be real. I absolutely fucking love giraffes. They are just some of the. There's not even anything super special about them beyond the noticeably long neck and them being pretty tall, but they're just so fucking awesome. Just love how they are, and I appreciate them for the sake that they exist, not because they're some magical creation for some egotistical sky daddy, but they exist as a product of nature. Lucky to be alive on this planet, same time as giraffes and a lot of other cool life forms. Just got to take value in it where it is. I don't need any supernatural mumbo jumbo to make the world magical or interesting or to find joy in it. Just take it for what it is. Why can't these people do that?
It's also rock and metal and gas and other things that don't qualify as either of these things, like amino acids and so forth.
And the solar nebula accretion disk being already being rich in amino acids and other organics. Yeah, everything we need for life is already out there in the cosmos. These chemicals exist. Get them together in the right way, get them doing the things they do, and boom, you got life. It's that simple.
Just being made of chemical, he's already admitted, does not mean rock. If you can freeze oxygen.
So I have been up close to giraffes. They were in their enclosure. I got to feed them bananas. I got to pet a giraffe. They're very timid if you get in the blind spot. I always forget that animals with that facial structure have a massive blind spot and are very timid there. I always want to pet right between the eyes. But they were extremely nice to me. No water sports were involved, even though I was right there beside them. When I got down and got to check out really the comparison of, wow, this is how tall they are. Like, their bodies are at head level for me. It's freaking wild. Just beautiful creatures. Damn, really want to go to the zoo sometime. Still hadn't had a chance to go in a good while. Sometime soon. Memphis Zoo is pretty awesome. One of the few things that's really cool about this city. Let's finish this up. We've got about 30 more minutes. We can do it.
And then you still wouldn't call it a rock, just like you wouldn't call ice a rock. Then it's not rock.
Lisa, the rainbow giraffe, leaf be upon you all.
Because it's not a mineral. So we're done. You're wrong,
No.
Kent. Correct your error.
We're not done, and you are.
Ooh, North Texas fossils with. Last week, I made a mistake of not immediately buying hand-carved wood giraffes at Goodwill. Went back a day or so later and they were gone. That sucks. I hate those moments. That's part of why I never actually go thrifting anymore, because I'm just like, forget it. I don't have space for stuff. Most of my life is in storage. When I can get my stuff back, I'll appreciate it. Maybe add new things to the collection, but I'm also tired of missing out on things. So, got to pick my battles, but I've been there. I have totally been there. Videos of people killed by giraffes in the wild. Yeah, giraffes are not something to fuck around with. I will not deny that they will not fuck your shit up. Any animal will. Some are just more capable than others. Also, I've seen one in an enclosure. It looked depressed. True. I feel the Memphis giraffes are actually pretty happy. But I'm no expert. I can't tell. But they did seem happy. We do have a really good zoo here. And when we had pandas, they were very well taken care of. Contrary to what Billie Eilish's dumbass decided to tweet about that one time. They've, of course, well, one passed away and then the other went back to China. We had him for 20 years. It was, I think it was the female who died. But yeah, Yaya and Lily, they were fucking awesome. It was cool to be in a city that had fucking pandas.
Are wrong, and I have nothing to correct. Now, the textbooks teach 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. It was a hot ball of rock. From that rock, the gases escaped and made an atmosphere of oxygen. From that
So
rock,
you're saying oxygen is a rock?
No, it came from the rock.
Okay, but oxygen doesn't come from
Damn it.
rock.
It's doing that thing again. No, Kent. Oxygen came from early photosynthetic organisms. Loose oxygen in the atmosphere and the way we think of it really wasn't much of a thing in the proto-Earth. That tends to get bonded to other things. You kind of have to have a process like photosynthesis, taking it from those other things, disassembling and reassembling molecules and atomic structures there to get oxygen. So Kent is just, I don't know what the fuck he's reading. Probably a choose your own adventure book.
Oxygen. Many of the rocks contain oxygen.
Oxygen is an element.
I agree.
What mineral does oxygen come from?
I don't know, but I can show you where the text
doesn't come from a mineral, Kent.
The text.
Edinburgh had giant pandas, but sent them back to China. Yeah, I mean they've been recalling them recently. It's always 20-year leases, so it's been 2 decades. But yeah, it's just sad. Cool, but sad. And with global tensions heating up like they are, it's unlikely we're going to get too many opportunities for a while to have something like that happen again. So, yeah, depressing.
Textbooks teach the Earth began as a hot ball of rock, and everything came
Does hydrogen
from there.
come from rock?
Apparently.
Ooh, Deviant popping in saying that her brother would disagree. A giraffe hit him right in the head with a stick when he was like 3 years old. I guess it was just trying to teach him a lesson. Sadly for me, he didn't learn anything. I mean, not every animal out there can be the nicest thing ever.
So.
How would that be apparent?
Well, you get a chemistry book and see how many rocks or minerals contain hydrogen in part of their chemical equation.
Well, many will contain the simplest of all elements, but that doesn't mean it comes from rock. You don't need rocks to create hydrogen. As a matter of fact, you need hydrogen to create rocks.
Wow. You asked me to point out where the textbook.
Wow. Harvin. This fucking clown.
Books teach this, and I show this clearly on my video.
And you failed utterly. Face plant. The sad thing is you don't know that you face planted. That's the disturbing thing.
No,
or maybe that you do, but you realize that donors won't see it if you can gloss over it somehow. But hydrogen does not come from rocks. You can combine 2 hydrogens to make lithium, for example. And you can combine, or obviously helium, and then combine a third one to make lithium, and so on. And you can get up to rocks, but you can't get hydrogen from rocks because rocks may contain hydrogen, but rocks don't produce hydrogen.
So according to the theory in the textbooks, the Earth was a hot ball of rock 4.6 billion years ago, and the gases came out of those rocks. I didn't write it.
Which means that the rocks did not produce the hydrogen. The hydrogen pre-existed them, and still nobody, no evolutionary biologist ever believed.
I can tell you what else is hard right now. Dealing with Kent.
We came from a rock. Now, if we can get past that, which I know you're never going to concede this error, because when have you ever conceded any error, no matter how obvious? We're still getting to the 2 points of evidence that I brought up, which you failed to address, either one of them. Now, if you want to get off of Phylogenetic,
Hey, Marty, good to see you.
next, fine. Just declare your failure there. Otherwise, I'll have to paraphrase the question again and see how you fail to answer it again. Or we can go to the other one if you like, and we can see how you fail.
You know, I'm certain Kent prays for every single atheist he's whacked. Prays that God strikes them down. Because that's the kind of petty piece of shit Kent would be.
To address that.
Okay, let's take the phylogenetics one. What you have, Aron, as evidence is
Yeah, I did too. It was fucking great.
lines on a piece of paper.
Except that we've already proved that it's not that at all. Can you draw lines on a piece of paper to a cat from a dog? So you can include your family of dogs. Are they a family of dogs only because we drew lines? Or is there some other way that people have decided whether there's a family of dogs? And whether the Borophagians or the wolves or the Lycaena pictus, whether the painted African wild dog, are they part of dogs? Is it because somebody drew a line on a piece of paper? Or is there some other thing
Is
that
the
is the
dog
reason
related?
they drew the line?
I have a textbook showing lines on paper connecting dogs and pine
Does
trees.
it explain the reason that they drew the lines? Does it explain the evidence why they drew the lines?
No.
Oh, okay. So they just drew the line because they wanted to? Just what, willy-nilly? So they can just draw lines from dogs to whales so that whales are now part of the dog kind? Because you can draw lines that way. So can you show me a textbook where they've done that? Where they've identified whales as a subset of dogs?
I did a Google search yesterday on systematics.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm showing you a picture. Well, you can't see it.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm answering your question.
Are you answering it with a yes, or are you answering it with a no?
Oh, well, Marty, I've watched that entire thing multiple times. It was legendary. And of course, Kent completely fucked it up and realized he bit off more than he could chew. Which he already should have known he did here. And really should have just packed everything up and just retired. But we know how stubborn that old piece of shit is.
Oh.
Aron,
can you answer either one?
There are many other ways to answer
questions. Give me your
questions.
explanations after you tell me if it's yes or no.
Okay. 2 + 2 = 4. It would be a yes or no question.
You can't answer
but
yes
if I
or no,
said what?
Answer yes or no. Okay.
You're interrupting again. Many questions cannot be answered with a yes or no, like what color is the sky? That's not a yes or no question. Hello? I'm showing you on the screen, which you can see when you watch my PowerPoint. Lines on paper.
Your camera hasn't worked since this podcast began.
It will be up on my YouTube channel. Kent Hope.
Your camera hasn't worked since this began. Love that.
Oh, great. Your YouTube subscribers can see what you're not showing me, but at least.
Boom! Love it. Also, the video is no longer on Ken Hovind Official because, what was that thing that happened about 2 years ago? Oh, yeah, the channel got terminated by YouTube. By the way, if you're new here and haven't checked it out, my most recent upload, which is not members only, it's just a straight upload. Normally, I do members only content for a couple of days, but in this case, I made an exception. Shows that in one of the more recent videos Kent did, we already knew this, but he fully acknowledges explicitly that Genesis Baptist Church is quote-unquote his YouTube channel. Not that other language he's used and obvious basic following the logic doesn't say it's his, explicitly, but a full-on admission which qualifies as band evasion. That'll be fun to check out. Leave some thoughts down below on that video if you feel so inclined.
At least admit that you're not showing it to me.
I'm telling you where I found it, and you can watch my YouTube anytime you'd like.
Oh, I do not want to subject myself to that. I don't like fiction.
That's why I don't. That's why
I don't like fiction. That's one of my key things. Like, don't like fiction.
Aron, that's why I don't watch yours either. But that's okay. Google search systematics. Just the word systematics. It shows a picture of a lizard, a snake, a crocodile, and a bird, and they have.
True that, Atom Skeptic. True that. I apologize. I'm not going to be reading out as many comments and the like. I do want to push through this because I'd like to get to some other stuff. I wasn't planning on going the whole way through, but love you guys, so got to power through, baby. Yeah.
Lines drawn connecting them to a common ancestor.
Lizard, snake, crocodile, bird.
Bird. Yep, it's a cardinal.
We have two lepidosauurs and two archosaurs, all three of which are diapsid, or excuse me, all four of which are diapsid. Okay, I follow you so far. Go ahead.
So you think birds and crocodiles are related? Is that correct?
They are archosaurs, both of them.
So they are related.
Meaning that they are related within the confines of the class or the clade Archosauria. Yes.
So they had a common ancestor. A crocodile and a bird had a common ancestor.
In the fossil record. Right now, if we're only talking about Linnaean characteristics of classification, then yes, birds are archosaurs just as are crocodiles.
So you're saying birds and crocodiles are related because
I'm saying that birds are in the same category as crocodiles because they're both archosaurs.
You know, Kent always tries to put some absurdist swing on everything, and of course says you believe such and such are related. Kent, you already know the position from an evolutionary standpoint, as opposed to creationism, is that all life is related. Quit asking that. Quit trying to turn it into something ridiculous. Move on to actual facts and evidence. Oh, wait, you have none. All you have is absurdist bullshit.
Okay,
there is other evidence that we can get to that shows that they are related.
Okay, so
one of them being,
you have a group of evidence, and by the way, evidence is a word. You can Google search it, but you have a group
quantifiable. You don't count evidences.
It is a word. Okay, it is in the dictionary.
A word, but it's not countable, so it's grammatically incorrect to say evidences.
Yeah, I'm glad you think it is. Okay, but it is in the dictionary. Now, this shows a line between a crocodile and a bird to a common ancestor. Mm-hmm. You say there are evidences that indicate this is true because somebody decided to call them the same and put them in the same category.
Wrong. Not because somebody decided to call them the same thing. As I said, Carolus Linnaeus obviously wasn't happy with realizing that humans were apes or the apes were humans, and he couldn't reconcile that. He obviously had huge dilemmas with that. And his dilemma was with the religious community because he knew that he would be under the ban of all ecclesiastics if he were to admit this.
And you think that's why he did it? Okay. Well, this is called in the text.
What's why he did what?
You think he really did believe in evolution, but didn't dare say it because of the
because first of all, it's not a belief. It's something that's indicated by the facts. Secondly, he didn't even know about evolution, didn't even think it was a possibility, so never considered it. And so this is why it was such a dilemma for him. When Darwin came up with natural selection.
Just for whatever it's worth to my wonderful audience, I would classify myself, if Kent was to come up and be like, "Oh, you believe?" It's like, no. I accept scientific consensus regarding evolution as a critical principle in biology. As far as it goes, belief is an irrelevant concept as far as this goes, especially not the belief he's talking about.
Selection and found that it was actually possible to derive new species from other species. Then he realized how this tree of life that Linnaeus had discovered, he found out the answer that explained the problem that Linnaeus couldn't answer himself.
So Darwin counted 14 species of finches on the islands, and that proves finches and crocodiles are related.
If you have any idea what you're talking about and extrapolate it, yes. There's an awful lot that you refuse to look at.
Twitch over here dropping another truth bomb. Kent Hovind is a criminal. Yes, he is. And it should be called out where necessary. And this is a necessary point to bring it up. Ken isn't even bright enough to know that Linnaeus was far prior to Darwin. Yeah, seriously. I'm skeptic. I classify myself as an arrogant asshole. I'm self-aware of that. Good point. I agree with that classification applying to myself sometimes. I don't like fiction. Fucking Aron is the best. Yeah, seriously. That was just the best moment.
That indicates that. Yes.
I'll look at anything. I think this.
You haven't looked at anything I've shown you.
Yeah, Kent. Based on your internet search history, you will look at anything. Bestiality, allegedly. Just saying. Hovind's got some proclivities. Of course, it's not hard to imagine given his obsession with animal reproduction.
So far. And I
Google
I
search-
would genuinely love to help you with this, but you are really having a problem. I could try to summarize it another way, because we brought up cats before. I mean, would you say that Bengal tigers are related to Burmese tigers and all other tiger species?
Probably so. Yes, sir.
Probably. So we're not even talking about. There's not even a probability that God created individual tiger species. So they all had a common ancestor that was a tiger.
No, there is a probability that there were several original kinds of tigers. I don't know. I've said that many
Several
times.
original kinds. So God created the Burmese tiger and the Bengal tiger and all the other original tiger species, so they don't have a common ancestor at all.
I didn't say that. You're the one saying that. I said,
I'm
and I'll say it. I'll say it again.
Okay.
Maybe you'll get it this time.
Okay,
I
so
said
which
I don't
is
know
it?
how many original kinds of tigers there were. There might have
There
only been 2 tigers.
should
There might have
be.
been 8 tigers.
Again, as I said, if evolution from common ancestry is not true, and some special flavor of creation is of unidentified kinds is true, then there would be some surface levels in a cladogram where you would accept an actual phylogeny. But then there must also be subsequent
Twitch saying they studied biology for 40 years and are still learning. You never stop learning. The moment I stop learning is I'm dead. That's the only way I'm going to stop learning. I refuse to stop learning new things. Now, I might be selective on what I care about, but I'd rather be dead than just willingly refusing to learn new things.
levels in that twin nested hierarchy where things are not the biologically related anymore. And at that point, it would be magically created separate kinds. You haven't shown me even the possibility of kinds yet.
I'm looking at a phylogenetic systematic.
I'm not saying Free Willy is Kent's favorite movie, but it's probably Kent's favorite movie, if you know what I mean. Not the Free Willy you're thinking of. Hovind. Hovind's a pervert.
Drawing taken from the internet yesterday when I thought we were going to have this discussion, but because of technical problems, we did not. It shows a whale and a horse and a camel all having a common ancestor. This is what they show the kids. I'm looking at another.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I failed to shout out Big Bad Mama as they popped up into the stream. The legend themselves. Was just linked to one of your YouTube short uploads of Kent. I will be checking that out as soon as this stream is over. Because Kent claiming atheist conspiracies. God, I love it. Just love it.
Drawing taken off the internet yesterday, and you can watch Kent Hovind official, and I'll even buy you a Pepsi to drink. I'm not going to buy you beer, but I'll buy you Pepsi to drink while you watch it. Showing the panther and the dog and the otter and.
Oh, Kent will buy a Pepsi for Aron to drink. You know, given Kent is in the deep south, I'm surprised he didn't say Coke. But, you know, Kent is a damn Yankee pretending to be a Southerner, so of course he'd say Pepsi. I mean, I don't really care. I'm a Dr. Pepper person myself. But that being said, North Texas Fossils pops up with, to me, a lack of intellectual curiosity is a character flaw. Seriously, it is a major, major flaw. Twitch saying Hovind should be put in jail for pedophilia. Gonna have to go with that trend. I don't want to push too many boundaries. Seems to passively be an enabler, if not actively, but that's all allegations. You know, I don't want Kent to try to sue me for slander. Like you trust the legal system.
The skunk related, as I mentioned before. And this is how they classify them. Darwin saw 14 varieties of finches. He then jumped to the wild conclusion.
Look down there at Steve. It's like he's nursing a massive headache from Kent. It's like, good God, this moron's still on this. Both guys are just like, I think Kyle's kind of grinning over there. I mean, fuck you, Kyle, but this is before you were a complete dipshit. It's like these guys are just tired of this shit. They're done.
And he said so on page 170 of his book. He said, it's a truly wonderful fact that all animals and all plants throughout all time and space should be related to each other. This is a non sequitur. This conclusion does not logically follow from the argument. The argument is there
does.
Okay,
And
in your mind, in your mind, it does. I know. In your mind,
not
it does.
in my mind, but in the.
Yeah, on the subject of Kent and enabling those types of people. Oh yeah, and anytime, BBM. I'm always gonna check out stuff. Y'all's shorts provide lots of little snippets that I'm gonna miss. That's why I've been so hell bent off and on of just covering everything this clown does. It's insane. But yeah, Kent associates with enough of those types of people that definitely makes him an enabler. And yeah, you think he would, if he cared at all about kids or, you know, had any kind of decency, would try to keep them away from a goddamn child's amusement park, which is basically what the deep part of DAL is supposed to appear as.
The actual reality that we can demonstrate, since all these different finches, there are different species of finches, and he was coming out of a belief system where where people had previously believed that species were immutable, and he came to the realization that species are not immutable, and that there are features, that there is this mechanism that could derive these other different species of birds from one common ancestor, i.e. a clade, not a kind, a clade. Once again, for the nth time, the difference between a clade, which you keep calling kinds, but it's actually clades, the difference between a clade and a kind is that a kind begins with an event of special creation. You haven't shown any two items that are different kinds, but within what science would consider to be the same clade. You failed utterly to do that, despite every repetition of that question. Can you now address that question, or should we go to the other thing you're going to inevitably fail at?
Your definition of kind is if they're eukaryotes, they're the same kind. That is crazy.
My definition of kind is, as I just explained and repeatedly has repeated to you, that it is a clade that begins with a special creation. That's my definition of kind. Now, a clade will be a category of animals that includes all its descendants, and eukaryote is one of these. Trees are in it, elephants are in it, you are in it. By admission, all these things are eukaryotes. So it's not my definition that's doing it. By your agreement, they are all eukaryotes.
So the dictionary definition I got yesterday, Cladistics, a method of classification of animals and plants according to the proportion of measurable characteristics that they have in common. It is assumed,
and as I already explained, the problem that your layman's dictionary approaches is that it doesn't include the monophyletic classification, that it must include all of its ancestors, or excuse me, all of its descendants, because that's what a clade is. That's the simplest definition of a clade, and your layman dictionary didn't get that right. That's the problem with using a layman dictionary for scientific description. It's difficult to get a layman dictionary to even properly define what an animal is, because animal, they often describe single-celled animals, and there is no such thing.
So the whole world's been waiting for Aron to come along and write the dictionary to tell us the truth about what these words mean. Okay, well, write your dictionary. That'll be great. Post it on you.
What a condescending prick who simultaneously thinks he's the arbiter of everything. It's... God, Kent, you're a fucking jerk ass.
YouTube or on wherever you want to put it, Wikipedia or something. I'm just saying, the Bible word kind is very clear that if they can bring forth. You think a pine tree and a whale are the same kind of creature, or an elephant.
Hang on.
Once again, I do not think that there is anything that is the same kind as anything else. There is no such thing as a kind, and I'm getting you to demonstrate that yourself by failing repeatedly, consistently, to show that there are kinds. Show me two kinds.
Elephant and pine tree are a different kind of life form.
God came down and created elephants. And from that, we got the different species of elephants. And they do not include mammoths and mastodons, because those are different. Those are not elephants. So God created separately mammoths and mastodons and loxodonts and other such things. He only created elephants. And I guess he created each one of these individual species as a different kind, according to you?
Well, it could be the African elephant and the Asian elephant have a common ancestor, but that does not
let's
prove
talk about let's go from what it could be. Give me two examples of kinds. Same question been asking you since the beginning. Give me two kinds.
Same answer.
In the beginning, Aron Ra asked Kent Hovind for two examples of kinds, and Kent Hovind proceeded to shit his pants. Film at 11.
Sir, I've given you since the beginning.
Which you haven't answered once. You're still going to clade.
Listen to me.
You're still going to a clade instead of a kind. The difference being a clade is a group of animals that includes all its descendants. We can go with elephant, we can go with squirrel, we can go with bat, any of the ones that you mentioned. The difference between a clade and a kind is that a kind is a clade that starts with an event of special creation. So show me two special creations that science would consider closely related. Same question been asking for an hour.
How about we ask for one? Would that be acceptable, Aron, if there's one kind, create a kind? We'll start there, especially when it comes to elephants, mastodons, and things like that nature. What would be a created kind from that original kind that all species and pachyderms and mastodons and woolly mammoths came from.
And then we got to include Cyrenians too,
Cyrenians,
because the common
all of
ancestor
the
of all
above.
also the common ancestor of Cyrenians. So manatees are part of the elephant kind, if you want to conclude that way.
There's 30 or 40 different things that you could probably throw in there. But what do you call that original kind?
Well, hold it. Don't forget to include all the planets, because they're made of the same elements, so they're the same kind also. They
I'm
all
not
have
sure
the
how
same
that-
92 elements.
Is it possible, Kent, that you think that other people can listen to you and think that that was a smart answer
That
from
had
you?
nothing to do with what I just asked.
I don't understand how you guys can't get it. Let me
You
try
don't
again.
understand. Just leave the sentence there.
Just leave it there. You don't understand. That's right, Kent. You don't understand.
Stand the show on that sentence, because that's the summary that I think everybody's gathered so
Yeah,
far.
honestly, I'm trying to be fair as possible. I really am. I'm just trying
Okay.
to clarify things for the audience and for the people that are
Okay.
involved in the discussion here. I'm not trying to show any kind of favoritism for anything. I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I asked you a question, Kent, in regards to what would be the original created kind that had been the predecessor of things like elephants and allopacoderms and woolly mammoths. And you answered.
Ken Hovind's the kind of motherfucker who would argue with a recording of himself.
Something in relation to planets, and I'm not seeing the correlation there.
Well, this is because he keeps changing the definition of kind to include something I never said. He keeps
I
saying,
didn't
"Well,
change
we
the
all,
definition. I'm using
you
the
did.
same. I'm using the same definition consistently. It's that
You
you
said-
don't understand what that definition is,
Oh, I understand.
and you're using the
completely.
wrong one. You
You're
are
saying
describing clades.
You're saying
You understand what a clade is? A clade
we
is the
both-
thing you keep describing. The difference between a clade and a kind is that a kind begins with a special creation. So show me two different clades that began with a special creation as opposed to a common ancestor. Give me
Well,
that.
I'm not going to concede that a clade and a kind are the same thing. So don't put those words in my mouth.
No,
I
they're
think-
not.
okay.
I'm not putting those words in your mouth. I'm
Okay.
saying they're different. I'm the one saying they are different. You're the one that it keeps confusing them.
Oh, I'm not confused at all. Listen carefully. A whale,
Keep
I mean,
describing
an
a
elephant.
clade and
I'm
calling
just-
it a kind without making any reference at all to their original creation, which is the
Okay.
key thing that makes a clade a kind, is whether it has been specially created. So show me the special creations, those two things that were specially created that science would consider to be in the same clade.
Well, I don't know what science would consider to be in the same clade, but I
Okay,
showed
then
you.
just admit that you can't answer the question, and we'll move to the next one.
I have answered it many times.
You have failed to answer, and you said you can't answer. You just won't admit it clearly because you don't want your listeners to know that you can't answer.
Oh, Aron, listen carefully. Elephants are different than pine trees. They are a different kind.
So are you
of
saying
life
that
form.
God created elephants
I'm
and
saying God.
mastodons and mammoths separately?
Here you are changing. I'm saying God
I'm
created
not
elephants.
changing it. I'm not the one changing it.
Stop interrupting, please. I'm saying God created elephants and pine trees separately. Whether
Okay,
elephants
so
and
you
mastodons
are
and
saying
mammoths.
that God created elephants separate from mammoths, separate
didn't
from
say that. I
mastodons?
didn't.
Okay, then that's where we get into the phylogeny challenge. So you're saying that the elephants and mammoths were all part of the same kind then?
I don't know. Elephants and mammoths may be the same kind, but elephants and pine trees
Maybe.
are
So you
not.
don't know. If
Elephants
you
and pine
can't show
trees,
me an example,
think-
right?
All right.
So-
You think elephants and pine
All
trees
right,
are the same kind?
it comes down to a yes or no question. Can you show me two created kinds that science would consider to be in the same clade? Can you? It's just yes or no. Yeah, can you do it?
I think elephants. Let's assume elephants and
Okay, so
mammoths.
it's not a yes
Mast-
and it's not a no. Can we take that as a no?
What color is the sky? Yes or no? Come on, you moron. This
Calling
There we go. There's Kent just being a total douchebag. Aron's been pretty goddamn nice to him. Firm, but extremely nice. And Ken Hovind is going to call Aron Ra a moron. What a fucking prick.
me a moron will not hide your own willful ignorance of this subject. I am
No,
the one who
oh,
knows
I'm
this.
sorry.
You are the
I-
one who knows dick about
I-
Jack. And everybody
sorry.
can watch this and see that.
elephants
So you
and
cannot answer the phylogeny challenge, nor will you even attempt to. You won't even hear out the question properly, nor understand it.
I'm giving you a clear answer, and I do understand
You
it.
can't give me an answer. Did God specially create elephants separate from, so the African elephant and the Indian elephant are together in one kind, but the mammoth is a different kind? A different special creation?
I don't know. That's
You
a
don't
great-
know. Thank you. That's the answer. You don't
Okay.
know. So you
Do you
can't
think-
answer the challenge.
Oh yeah, Falk Firebeard. I know. I'm not as deep as a lot of people in it, but I am all over like the broad sweep of Kent Hovind's current stuff. I'm Kent Hovind. He's always the one who wants debates with people. If he wants a debate with me, I have established criteria that he would need to meet, and then the event could happen on my terms. He and his cohorts refuse to acknowledge this, ergo, they're too chicken to debate. To debate me. So I win by Kent's logic. He thinks everyone needs to bow down and kiss his ass, and it's like, no, old man. Goes the other way around.
Do you
Done.
think?
Move to the next one.
No, you think elephants and pine trees are the same kind?
Yes, they're both eukaryotes.
Okay, if you think an elephant and a pine tree are the same kind of life form,
Except
that's
we're talking about clades now, because this is the one you keep confusing. I do not believe in a special creation. So it's not a kind. It's a clade. It's a clade because it includes all of its descendants, right? So it includes elephants and it includes pine trees and it includes you and it
Exactly. Hovind wants the debates because it's free advertising. I'm not giving him that pleasure.
includes raccoons and it includes grass and it includes fungus.
That's proof
And
for all. Plus,
everything.
don't forget. Hey, don't forget the
Clade.
most important.
But there's
Don't
a
forget the
difference
most
between a clade
Aron,
and a kind.
Don't forget the most important. Don't forget the most important. Don't forget the damn Kent, you're like a little child.
don't forget the most important thing. You can draw lines between them. That's proof right there.
All lines too, but they would be meaningless if you don't put reasons behind them as I can.
You can put a line. You can put a reason behind drawing a line between a pine tree and an elephant.
Yes, they're both eukaryotes. That's the reason.
That's proof we're related. I don't know why I never thought of that before. Gee,
They are both related in the system of classification that puts us both in the same category of eukaryote. Correct? We are both in that same category, right?
we are both. How about let's classify those that contain oxygen. How would that be a clade? Creatures that contain oxygen. Would that include Venus?
Everything that's alive.
Everything that's alive. Well,
Period.
if we're going to make a different definition, you decided if it has a nucleus in the cell, therefore it must be related.
I didn't decide that.
Okay, well, what if it contains oxygen? I bet Venus has oxygen on it. That's got to be in the same clade then.
You're avoiding the subject now.
Clades
I
have
know
to do with
this.
derived characteristics.
It's more than avoiding the subject. Kent's just being an outright dumbass. Like, intentionally just being stupid. This is all he's got. Try to make things sound stupid. Not gonna work for you, buddy. Not gonna work.
We agree that Kent Hovind failed to address the phylogeny challenge, and then we move on to the second one. I don't know how.
Guys, hold it. When we started,
question.
Okay, hang on. You guys are talking past each other. Hang on. Kent, go ahead, please. But real quickly, clades have to do with derived characteristics.
I only go to his channel as a matter of course to do my videos. Otherwise, I don't give a fuck. And it's only because in the past few months I'd started doing this stuff that I bothered actively watching anything of Kent's. And it's always specifically for reaction and nothing more. That's the most attention and interaction he gets from me. I've left the occasional live chat comment for the fun of it. I called into his stupid ass open mic once just to prove a point. Otherwise, he gets nothing from me.
And I don't think oxygen falls into a derived heritable characteristic, but go ahead.
We agreed to go an hour and a half to 2 hours. It has been 2 hours. I have 20 people or 15 people out here waiting for me to haul them home. We usually have our Bible study this time at night for 30 minutes. Now, let's do another one. I am not the least bit afraid of this. And let's
do another one. The another one never happened.
I'll listen to the tape, to this YouTube that we're going to put up. And you can see my pictures that I put up. Kent Hovind Official. And you can call me anytime, 855-BIG-DINO, extension 3, and I'll answer the phone and talk to you. But I think I have answered the question dozens of times that a kind is able to bring forth. Oh, I know you don't think I have, but I think the listening audience
Nobody thinks you have.
We
all
will do
know
a
you haven't
survey.
answered the question. You
We will
haven't
do a
produced
survey.
two kinds yet that meet that classification.
Okay. Well,
Not
actually,
yet.
do you want to do a survey, Kent? I mean, we can arrange for something. We have
Yeah,
approximately.
let's
Wait, hang on.
do
We
that.
have well over 700 people watching at this moment. I don't
Yay.
even know half the people watching, and that's unusual. I know a lot of the names, but we can arrange for something where we can get maybe a random sampling to see what people have thought about this. And I'm curious myself.
Sure.
I like to see what the general consensus is. I'm just reading the live feed, and just by going to the live feed, and I'm not trying to be should be biased here, but just going by the live feed, I think right now everybody has said that you haven't answered the questions that have been posed to you, pretty much.
Well, let the
Let's do
audience
the next
decide,
slide.
and we'll put that on Twitter and the
yeah,
Because-
let's do that on
well,
Twitter or something, and we
it's-
will make a survey on that. Is that cool? Aron, are you okay with that?
No, yeah, I'm all for that.
Okay.
If we're going to do this again, since we haven't addressed the second item of evidence at all,
Okay, what is your second evidence?
that we actually know things and can show things to be true of evolution, where we can't show dick about Jack to be true about creationism. So we actually know things about evolution. That's the thing. So we go over the facts of evolution, where you can fail to list the facts for creationism, for example.
Okay. Well, yeah, let's have another one of these. I think it's, of course, how you phrase the question determines every survey. Did I answer the question that an elephant and a pine tree are different kinds? And he right away changed it to say elephant and mammoth.
I tell you what,
I said elephant and pine tree. He changed
Can
it.
we
what I'll
put
do,
down
Kent.
definitions too? Because I mean, this is going to be key. I've given my definition again and again and again, and he keeps saying, "Well, if it brings forth," which is not a definition
That's a
of kinds.
species.
Kent, what do you think would be fair? A fair way to phrase, just so it doesn't look like there's any bias. What do you think a fair way to phrase the question would be? And I'll put it on right now as we speak.
Well, let me think about that before I just off the cuff, and I'll text you one.
All right, you can get back to it.
I can do it so much easier. I already did the video on this, the Phylogeny Challenge, and so anybody that wants to can go watch the video, the Phylogeny Challenge. Did Kent Hovind meet that challenge?
And
So
that,
simple.
you know what, and that should be the simple question. Honestly, I mean, the challenge should be: did Kent answer the question or meet the Phylogeny Challenge? Now, we are familiar with the Phylogeny Challenge. I've seen the video. I think most people have. I think it's a fair question to ask. As is, did Kent answer the Phylogeny Challenge?
Well, good question. Let's ask a few more questions. Did Aron demonstrate that a pine tree and a whale or elephant are related? Did Aron
In the
demonstrate that
in the
any
classification of eukaryotes,
see-
yes, I did.
see what the listeners think? Did you demonstrate that evolution is actually qualifies as science?
That was
I can-
That will have to be the second one, because we haven't even addressed that. We haven't
Sure.
even
that was
touched that in this
that was not
interview.
even addressed in this
All
particular
right.
topic.
Well, let's do another one. Set it up with Rhonda, 855 Big Dino extension 2. She keeps the schedule, and I think 1.5 to 2
Not no more. She don't.
hours is plenty for people to sit and listen to. But I would like to remind you guys, you're going to die.
Here we go. The empty thread at the end. Fuck you, Kent. Preemptive fuck you, and you'll get a postemptive fuck you.
One day, and you're going to be dead for a long time. I hope you can. Can you take what you believe now to the grave? You happy with it?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
fuck you,
We'll
Kent.
see you then. Thank you, guys.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you, Ken, for joining us. We appreciate it.
All right.
And
Thank you.
we're going to kind of wrap this up. Obviously, it has been a little bit over 2 hours. There is going to be an after show.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this was a bucket of chuckles. I didn't expect to have. I didn't expect to have as much fun with this as I.
Oh yeah, that's a name I ain't heard in a while. Bullionator. I think he passed away. So bummer there. He was really getting going with some stuff. Did great on coordinating a lot of things behind the scenes in the community in that late 2010s region. Yeah, and then he passed on. So I think so. Shout out to Bullionator.
I did.
I'm glad. You know what? And I enjoyed it thoroughly as well.
I had a good time. I had a good time too. I had a good time.
Ken,
I'm going to give Aron the SpongeBob award. He's got a vivid imagination.
Ken, could you do me a favor? Thanks, Steve and Nick and Rhonda, all the above for helping out with this. I've been in communication with them all day, and they really
I'd like to
go
know
out of
what
their way
people think I
to make sure that
imagine.
this happened. Okay.
He says.
Okay, yeah, I think we're done here. At the end, it's just the witty, the random banter that happens. It's not even witty banter; it's just random banter. So there we go. It took 3 hours and 12 minutes. I did not plan on streaming this long, but we went through the entire Kent Hovind Aron Ra discussion. As always, I want to thank everyone for being here, hanging out, having fun. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the comments. We reached, it was averaging 70 people, get towards 80. So went pretty big, pretty good as I knock stuff down. I'm a klutz. Right. Again, thank you all, as always. Much love. Thanks for interrupting Kent regularly. I try my best. Easy way to handle listening to Hovind. Yeah. Because I realized that why I do this the way I do is because the only way some people are going to explicitly engage in Hovind's content is through an intermediary. That's the only way I did with AJ primarily doing his stuff. So I thought I would add what I had to say into the discourse. Didn't realize it reached the level it has, but we're moving forward, baby. Here's 2025 and more awesomeness. Much love. Catch everyone next time. I'm going to go play Guild Wars.